The Pentagon just cranked Israel's counterintelligence threat level all the way up to critical, the highest designation, right there with our worst adversaries. U.S. officials are now using burner phones and staying tight-lipped in hotel rooms when they visit Israel because the Israelis are aggressively spying on top Trump administration people, digging for inside dope on decisions about Iran and Lebanon. This isn't some rogue operation. It's all coordinated, hyper-aggressive espionage from our so-called closest ally. Jonathan Pollard-style damage from the past should have been a warning, but here we are again. Americans are rightly asking how an ally that spies on us at this level gets treated like family.
With me, I don't care if you start throwing nukes immediately, responsibly, but immediately. And a case that I've been pushing is the use of an electromagnetic pulse weapon or weapons against Iran. Why are we waiting to get hit?
That's Jonathan Pollard, the most famous Israeli spy in modern history, who sold out our secrets, got our agents killed, you name it. He sold to the Russians, the Chinese, the Israelis, everybody. And remember, Trump pardoned him back at the end of his first administration. So now Israel's funding will be within the Pentagon in joint weapons development, but they're going to be allowed into everything and be able to claim co-ownership of the U.S. military-industrial complex that Eisenhower told us to beware the technological elite that control the military-industrial complex. So think about that. Then you've got 38 states that have passed laws or executive orders that if you criticize Israel in any way, or ever boycott Israel, or criticize Zionism, or what happened in Gaza, these are laws that you cannot have any government contracts or government jobs. Totally illegal, unconstitutional tyranny. And that's because Israel admits they're moving their weapons industries here to the United States. And so now if you criticize anything Israel's doing, you're shut down by the state governments, violating our First Amendment. You add that with the NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act, you got to read that for yourself. Total lifetime fusion integration of everything, from academia to DARPA to MIT to secret weapons development to live intelligence, telemetry, weapons guidance, weapons systems, everything. Remember, the other agencies don't even let each other know what they're doing. The other armed services branches are in competition and let them have their secrets. And that's good to keep things compartmentalized. Congress doesn't even know 10% of what the Pentagon's up to. This is Israel's coup against America.
The real gut punch is what's happening in Congress at the exact same time. On the heels of the revelation of Section 224 slowly advancing, Senator Tom Cotton slipped Section 622 into the FY27 Intelligence Authorization Act. This thing locks America into permanent, unbreakable intelligence entanglement with Israel. It mandates expanded sharing, ties it to Israel's qualitative military edge, restricts the president or future Congress from scaling it back without jumping through huge legal hoops and notifying bought and paid for committees, and even pushes sharing with Abraham Accords countries. There will be no unwinding this. We are looking at Intel Fusion as a pillar of policy, handing over leverage that could bite us hard if relations sour. We'll find ourselves either towing the line for Israel or facing serious consequences. Meanwhile, the Pentagon flags Israel as a top spy threat, and lawmakers are wiring them deeper into our system. This isn't partnership. It's a one-way street that smells like foreign influence money run amok. America First means putting our sovereignty and secrets ahead of any foreign lobby. It's not optional, and it's a major insult on this 250th anniversary of our nation. John Bound reporting.
I think it's pretty undeniable, at least from my own experience, that there is very rampant anti-Semitism in the United States, at least.
That's your experience?
That has been my experience.
Are you Jewish?
I'm half Jewish, but it's not necessarily that it's directed at me, but people growing up, slurs against other races aren't tolerated, but slurs against Jews I would hear pretty regularly, lots of Jew jokes where you wouldn't be able to make black jokes.
I don't agree with that at all. First of all, there was an era in which one calculated anti-Semitism not by a person's thoughts, because you can't control a person's thoughts. And even you can't control your thoughts. And even you probably can't figure out what's your quote-unquote real motive for whatever you do. Are you interviewing me now because of a sincere inquiry into the life of the mind? Or does it have an egotistical component? Or does it go back to something your mother said when you were 5 years old? You know, the human psyche is very complicated, and it's not susceptible to easy analysis or control. So there was an era where nobody ever thought about those things. When you talked about anti-Semitism, it meant, does it affect your job opportunities? Does it affect your access to certain institutions of higher education? Does it affect where you're going to live? Does it affect negatively your interactions with the law? That's what anti-Semitism meant. They were quantifiable, palpable, lucid expressions of this phobia, whatever you want to call anti-Semitism, okay? By that reckoning, can you name me a place in the United States where a Jew would have trouble purchasing a home or renting an apartment? Name me one place. I'd be curious. Can you name me one university, one college, one, in the whole United States, where a Jew would have trouble getting in because he or she was Jewish? One. Could you name me one profession? Does the medical profession discriminate against Jews? There's a legal profession. I mean, that was once a problem. That's why Jewish law firms are created, because they couldn't get into the white shoe WASP law firms. Does that exist anymore? So this is just completely and totally ridiculous to talk about anti-Semitism in the United States. On the contrary, being Jewish gets you into professions. It's an asset in our society. In publishing, being Jewish makes a big difference. You know what they used to call the New York Review of a book? They called it the New York Review of each other's books, and they were all Jewish.
Indeed, they are all Jewish. And I like that video. I know Miss Emily said in chat she liked it as well. And yeah, I think it just helps further explain that anti-Semitism, they throw around that word all the time, and they're constantly labeling people as anti-Semites, but that, as far as the way he just described it in that video, that does not exist anymore, and hasn't for a long time. So now they've morphed it, though, into just anything critical that you say against the Zionist regime, the people in charge over there, and if you have any disagreement with what they're doing, whether it's genociding the people in Gaza or whatever, then you are an anti-Semite. But you can see that that is not at all what that definition even means. Never has been, actually. So it's just a simple disagreement at this point. Disagreeing with someone does not then mean that you get to be called a name. It's just a disagreement. And we should all be allowed to be able to disagree. But we all know how that goes these days, right? Not if you are against anything Israel is doing. You're not allowed. Not anymore. All right, well, it looks like there's a new peace deal. Yet again, I guess we can probably circle your calendars here. I think, how many times has Trump come out and said there's a now complete deal or something to those effects, that it's all going to be completely concluded, and everybody is going to be celebrating because the war is coming to an end and all this stuff. Yeah, right. I don't think so. I don't think so if Israel has anything to say about it. And we know they will. U.S.-Iran deal now complete, according to Trump, for the 50th time, I think. Mediator Pakistan says the sides will sign the agreement on Friday in Switzerland, according to this. And then he's, I think, even come out since then and said maybe he would do it sooner. Is this the scripture that we hear about, where you have where we hear about peace and safety, and then sudden destruction comes? I think that could be the case if Israel has anything to do with it, and we know they have nukes. So that's what they've used every time Trump has tried this. They have tried the threat against using nukes, against whoever. And of course, Trump supposedly says he doesn't want that, so he backs down. So that could be what happens again, or it could be that they actually use a nuke somewhere. Who knows? Because Israel is absolutely capable of anything at this point. And we do have the article pulled up here on another tab talking about the Pakistanis and how they were the mediator, and they are actually saying the same thing. So, the story appears to be legit as far as that goes. Whether or not something will happen between now and when the papers are signed or whatever is going to happen, it's certainly prime false flag territory, if you ask me. President Trump has announced that a new peace deal with Iran is now complete, signaling the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, which, by the way, they still completely control and will, even afterwards. I hereby fully authorize the toll-free opening of the Strait of Hormuz and simultaneously herewith authorize the immediate removal of the United States naval blockade. Ships of the world, start your engines, let the oil flow, Trump wrote on Truth Social, which, of course, is a total lie and only half-truths all the way through it. We're going to look at that a little closer, too. Pakistani Prime Minister Sharif, who mediated the negotiations, said that both sides have declared the immediate and permanent termination of military operations on all fronts, including in Lebanon. I don't know if they actually brought Israel into this, though. I don't think they did. They're the ones doing the bombing in Lebanon. Sharif added that the agreement would be formally signed on Friday in Switzerland. U.S. and Iran previously said that a memorandum of understanding had been largely finalized. According to Tehran, the document would focus on ending the war and reopening the Strait of Hormuz, while Iran's nuclear program would be addressed in separate negotiations within 60 days of its signing. I don't think that it's the Iranian nuclear program that is putting us all at risk. Do you? I think it's the Israeli nuclear program that's putting us all at risk. Trump had several heated phone calls with Bibi, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, in recent weeks, during which he demanded that Israel stop its airstrikes in Lebanon. Iran had previously threatened to suspend the talks unless the Israeli campaign comes to an end. But all they do is pause and wait for a little while and then start right back up again. That's what they keep doing time and time again. Anyway, I thought that was pretty interesting. That's the big news for the moment. And, we'll see where it goes. But don't hold your breath. As we all know, Trump screwed us. So here's the other side of it. Israeli officials fume over emerging Iran peace deal, which is why I'm saying this is now absolutely prime territory for false flags. And Israel, we know Israel is really good at conducting false flags. They are probably the best in the world as such. Trump screwed us. Israeli officials fume over emerging Iran peace deal, according to the media. The agreement will be interpreted as the U.S. bowing to pressure from Tehran, according to Ynet sources, and that is what's going on. Nonetheless, Israeli officials feel sidelined by the emerging U.S.-Iran peace deal and are furious with what they believe amounts to a catastrophe that fails the objectives set prior to the war, according to a report by Israeli outlet Ynet. According to the reported terms, the agreement would reopen the Strait of Hormuz without a toll regime. That's not actually true. They're just renaming what they're calling it. Lift the American naval blockade on Iranian ports, ease sanctions on Tehran, and defer nuclear talks to later. While Trump said the agreement would be signed on Sunday, Iranian officials said it would happen later. Tehran has also insisted that the deal end the conflict between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon, where Israeli forces have occupied a significant chunk of territory. Yeah, a really, really significant part. And I think they're even moving in certain areas. At the same time, whereas U.S. officials seek an agreement that underlines broad regional peace, including in Lebanon, they insist that Israel reserves its right to self-defense. Yeah, it does, but that's not what we're talking about here. They are going out systematically and destroying other countries, or at least attempting to. However, Ynet, citing multiple senior Israeli officials, reported on yesterday, that West Jerusalem believes that the agreement taking shape falls short on every major Israeli red line. And here they are. Nuclear dismantlement, missile limits, the rollback of Iran's regional allies. Tehran has repeatedly said that it does not seek nuclear weapons and uses its atomic capabilities for peaceful purposes only. Trump screwed us, one Israeli official told Ynet. The second official called the deal very bad. From our perspective, it's a catastrophe because it does not meet any of the principles we spoke about when the war began, he said. The third official from Israel warned that the deal would widely be interpreted as a setback for America. The regional working assumption is that it was signed under the Iranian pressure and the American climb down, not the other way around. Publicly, Netanyahu expressed his appreciation for Trump's commitment that the deal would include the removal of enriched material from Iran, while stressing that his country is not a party to the agreement. So there you go. They weren't part of it. Behind the scenes, however, a different picture emerges, and Trump yelling at Netanyahu in early June, calling him effing crazy over Israel's strikes in Lebanon, according to Axios. And he personally leaked that story to Axios, so that actually was true. But it doesn't matter, because Bibi's still the actual president of the United States, like I've been saying for many, many weeks at this point. Threatened to withdraw support for Israel if it restarts the war with Iran. Publicly, Trump also stressed that Netanyahu has no other choice but to accept the U.S.-Iran deal. Yeah, that is, of course, unless they let loose something atomic, something nuclear, something really bad. And they may. So let's hope that this is not the peace and safety and then sudden destruction coming. But it's not looking too good, if you ask me. But what do I know? Anyway, I thought that was pretty interesting, and things do seem to be shaping up to be headed down that road. Israel is not happy, and they are completely off the chain at this point and are capable of absolutely anything. U.S. and Iran agree on peace roadmap, signal reopening of Strait of Hormuz, live updates. This agreement will be signed on Friday in Geneva. Further information here, a little bit more info. Won't bother going into that one any further, but there's several articles here. And then I wanted to pull this one up too. Different tab. Trump says Netanyahu has no effing judgment after Beirut strike. Trump rebukes Israel as Beirut strikes risk derailing Iran deal. Netanyahu left the cabinet to talk to Trump, and then everything exploded. So these are all separate links to different articles. Netanyahu left the cabinet meeting for a tense conversation with Trump, who informed him of upcoming signing with Iran. In the conversation, he clarified Israel is not committed to the Lebanese clause and will not withdraw from IDF positions in Lebanon. So that right there, this whole last part here, Israel is not committed to the Lebanese clause, meaning removal of troops from southern Lebanon, and will not withdraw from IDF positions in Lebanon. That right there is a deal breaker, isn't it? That tells me they're not going anywhere, and it's not going to work. Pakistan says U.S. and Iran reach peace deal. Iran says the U.S. has agreed to pay $300. Now, here's the different points here. Now, this is us winning. Don't forget that. This is Trump's version, his definition of winning. United States winning the war. Iran says the U.S. has agreed to pay $300 billion in reconstruction funds directly to Iran as part of the deal that Pakistan announced, alongside the release of $24 billion more in frozen funds, with $12 billion released before negotiations even start. So maybe that's already been done. I don't know. This directly contradicts Trump's and Vance's claim that no funds will be transferred to Iran at all. Oh, gee, you mean they lied? No way. Add this to the over $1 billion per day for the last 100 days of the war, and you can see here, you can see the lovely comparison between what Trump's done and what Obama did. And then here are his tweets going back to 2013 and 2017, where he's talking about what a rotten deal that we made with Iran. Meaning, when Obama was in there, what a rotten deal we made with Iran. We get nothing except laughter at our stupidity. They get everything, including delay and big cash. Iran was on its last legs and ready to collapse until the U.S. came along and gave it a lifeline in the form of the Iran deal, $150 billion. So they're showing They're showing the 1.7 billion, I guess, that was what Obama decided to give to Iran versus what was just agreed to recently in the last day or so. 300 billion from Trump. So obviously he's showing them who's boss, isn't he? I thought that was pretty interesting. Oh yeah, here's the actual English version of the Pakistani peace deal here that was negotiated by Pakistan. If you have any doubts, let's have a look here. Takes a minute for the page to load. Has to come all the way from Pakistan. So be patient. See, there it is. That's funny. This page literally did work just a little while ago. Now it's offline. But you can see right here in plain Pakistani, the page is no longer available. Well, anyway, I guess the peace deal's off. The page has already been taken down from the, MEHR News, the English version. Islamabad says U.S. Iran reach peace deal. This article worked just a little while ago. Now it's apparently offline. Maybe we'll try it again later. Anyway, that was the actual article I was going to show you guys. I thought it was kind of interesting that it was posted there, but it's even more interesting if they've taken it down. I wonder if that means the peace deal is off. I don't know. All right, let's move on. We've got lots of other things to look at tonight. So we've talked about the UK quite a bit, and there was a huge story in the last week to 10 days of what's happening in Belfast in Ireland, and is not good, but it apparently is good in a way in that the Irish are waking up, and I think that they may be the first to actually fight back here. I think that's good. Do we need to be running guns to the UK at this point to help them out? Maybe they don't even need that. Maybe they just need pitchforks and torches and stuff. It says Ireland riots erupt in Belfast after brutal near beheading by migrant from Sudan. Yeah, and the video I don't think is in here. Oh yeah, here it is. Right, here's a still shot of it. It is pretty brutal to watch. But this guy is literally sitting on a white guy here from Ireland, an Irish Belfast resident, trying to behead him, and the people around that who are videoing it do finally beat the guy over the head with a sign or something. They knock him off and get him off of this guy before he kills him. I'm surprised that the guy didn't die, but he's in pretty bad shape in the hospital, needless to say. So anyway, this is about them potentially fighting back, and that's what the screenshot here is of. Parts of Belfast, Ireland were turned into a war zone after 30-year-old Sudanese migrant Hadi Alodid, the guy I just showed you, allegedly, he was on camera doing it, stabbed and tried to behead an Irishman, Stephen Ogilvie, who is disabled and suffers from schizophrenia. Mr. Ogilvie was stabbed in the face, neck, and back and suffers from serious wounds in addition to the loss of his left eye. He is in critical condition. A bystander stopped the attack by repeatedly hitting him with a Hurley sports bat. Okay, it was a bat. Mass rioters in the Loyalist district, Protestants loyal to Britain, torched homes suspected of housing migrants, a Middle Eastern supermarket, a bus, and police cars after the attack. Journalist Andy No identified the protesters as mostly Protestant youths. The situation is complex due to the decades-long conflict known as the Troubles, quote-unquote, between the Loyalists and the Irish Catholics that lasted from 1969 to 1998. Some Loyalists engaged in paramilitary violence and killed hundreds of Catholic civilians. According to AI, the primary political goal of Loyalists is to prevent a united Ireland between Protestants and Catholics. However, some reports indicate Irish Catholics and Protestants are currently joining together against the migrants. Meanwhile, far-left pro-migrant politicians are blaming social media for inciting riots and racism and are pointing the finger at Elon Musk's X platform. Critics are concerned there could be crackdown on internet speech and martial law, which of course there will be. There will be now. This gives them the excuse that they wanted. The most efficient and peaceful way to end mass immigration is to stop funding it. So that is true. and perhaps they've had enough. I don't know. Not sure what it's going to take. So there's some embedded videos here talking about the whole situation. And, Belfast burning, home set on fire by protesters following attempted beheading of this man. And the guy who's being attacked here by this Sudanese asylum seeker, he and his, I think, mother were helping this guy. They were helping them, him and whoever he was there with, in that building. And for whatever reason, he just decides to attack him. Again, they are third worlders, and anything can happen because they literally have the IQs of about, 60, 70, something like that, maybe 80. Not good. So anyway, that is a needtoknow.news article, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with regard to Ireland. I do think that the Irish perhaps could step up and start driving people out before anyone else in the UK has the cojones to also do that very same thing. I don't think they're going to fight back much, but the Irish might. We'll see. We'll see what happens. All right. Next article is from the Liberty Beacon. This is one that I mentioned part 1 of last week. I just wanted to mention that part 2 is out. Israel's unprovoked and unanswered attack on the Liberty, the USS Liberty. The Arab-Israeli Six-Day War and the Attack on the Liberty, Part 2. Infamy at Sea. I mentioned Part 1 last week on the libertybeacon.com. Infamy at Sea, cover-up in D.C., Israel's attack on the USS Liberty, Part 2 of 2. So this is the final piece to this article. The Pentagon lied to the public about the attack on the Liberty from the very beginning. In a decision personally approved by the loathsome McNamara, the Pentagon denied to the press that the Liberty was an intelligence ship, referring to it instead as a technical research ship, as if it were little more than a military version of Jacques Cousteau's Calypso. The military press corps on the USS America, where most of the wounded soldiers had been taken, were placed under extreme restrictions. All of the stories filed from the carrier were first routed through the Pentagon for security clearance. Objectionable material was removed, with barely a bleat of protests from the reporters or their publications. Predictably, Israel's first response was to blame the victim, a tactic that has served them so well in the Palestinian situation. First, the IDF alleged that it had asked the State Department and the Pentagon to identify any U.S. ships in the area and was told that there were none. Then the Israeli government charged that the U.S. Liberty failed to fly its flag and didn't respond to calls for it to identify itself, which of course is a total lie. I'm just adding that. The Israelis contended that they assumed the Liberty was an Egyptian supply ship called El Qusr, which, even though it was a rusting transport ship then docked in Alexandria, the IDF said it suspected of shelling Israeli troops from the sea. Under these circumstances, the Israelis said they were justified in opening fire on the Liberty. The Israelis said that they halted the attack almost immediately when they realized their mistake. Yeah, right. After they killed, 20 or 30 some guys and injured hundreds. U.S. Liberty contributed decisively toward its identification as an enemy ship, the IDF report concluded. It was a blatant falsehood, since the Israelis had identified the Liberty at least 6 hours prior to the attack on the ship. Yeah, they needed it to be a false flag to get us into the wider war, which we're seeing them play out even almost daily right now. That's what Israel does. So anyway, it's probably a good time to brush up on some USS Liberty information for sure. This is, again, part 2, available on thelibertybeacon.com. I think it's certainly worth a look, and quite a bit here on this particular article. So anyway, we will have this one posted in the Substack that I send out later in the week, probably Tuesday. It's like I always say, make sure you're on the list. So it's the diamonddisc.substack.com is where that is. Linked to in the description underneath this video also on the QR code up in the corner. All right, and then the next article for tonight, got two here tonight for technocracy.news. I thought this one was somewhat interesting. I don't really trust this guy. Javier Milei says Argentina moves to legalize non-human corporations run by AI. Non-human corporations. Javier Milei is a libertarian in the anarcho-capitalist vein who promotes technocracy. He is the first to break the dam, granting AI rights comparable to humans. This is a slippery road. If he succeeds, it will open the door to outright personhood. As an unabashed champion of AI, Milei is exhibiting symptoms of AI psychosis. You could already make the case that corporations are faceless monoliths geared purely towards maximizing profits with only a peripheral consideration of human well-being. So when Argentina's scandal-laden president, Javier Milei, called for the creation of, quote, non-human corporations run by AI in a new opinion piece for the Financial Times, you kind of have to applaud him for dispensing with the formalities and just admitting to the misanthropy at the heart of our glorious capitalist free enterprise system. The tone is set with the very first line, where Milei extols the 1602 founding of the Dutch East India Company, the infamous colonialist monopoly that committed countless atrocities and massacres, as well as exploiting and trading hundreds of thousands of slaves. Americans may be familiar with Milei as the guy who gifted Elon Musk a chainsaw that the two of them waved together around the stage to celebrate Musk's gutting of the federal government last year, which of course didn't happen, did it? In his new piece, run under the title Argentina Invites AI to Free Itself, he is continuing to beat the anti-big government drum by advocating to keep AI unregulated, quote unquote, so that one day Buenos Aires will become for AI what Amsterdam was for the age of sail. Sail, S-A-I-L. As much as the Industrial Revolution freed us from the constraints of the human muscle, AI will free us from the constraints of the human brain, pushing productivity beyond our wildest dreams, Milei proclaims. Yeah, it sounds like it's already freed Milei from the constraints of his human brain, doesn't it? Because it doesn't sound like he's using one. Anyway, that was a technocracy.news article, and then this one is as well. This one has perhaps a little bit more of a concerning headline. All right, this one again, technocracy.news, Jesus-level technologies. Jesus-level technologies. Not my words, it's the words of this article. China beats Elon Musk to launch world's first commercial brain chip. Just what we need. Commercial brain chip. I think that they've been experimenting with this stuff, though, for many decades at this point. So the caveat here is that it's commercial. Does Musk have a messiah complex? He says about Neuralink, they're sort of what I might call Jesus-level technologies. We mentioned that a few weeks ago when he said that. As early as 2022, he said that the blind will see and the lame will walk, roughly paraphrasing Jesus in Luke 7:22. As a transhumanist, Musk supports the merger of human flesh with advanced technology. Hackers are excited, surveillance, advertising corporations are elated, political thought police are enraptured. China has just approved the world's first brain-computer chip, and they've beaten billionaire tech bro and MAGA evangelist Musk to market. The coin-sized device, shown right here, big coin, coin-sized device called Neo, N-E-O, sounds like the Matrix, is the first surgical implant to pass clinical trials for commercial sale. Version 1 is optimized to enhance the nervous system of patients suffering spinal cord injuries and paralysis. It's about to enter mass production for a Chinese state-run health system. But the Chinese Communist Party and Mr. Musk see this as just the first step on a path towards super productive and compliant human cyborgs. Mr. Musk has not been backward in coming forward about the technology's benefits. Restoring control of people who are tetraplegics and restoring sight, I think, are pretty big deals. He told an event in Israel last month. They're sort of what I might call Jesus-level technologies. Again, that is Musk's words. His brain implant startup Neuralink promises users the ability to perform routine tasks using thought control, such as typing and moving a mouse, reversing paralysis, restoring sight, and raising the dead remain in the realm of theology, but that is not incorporeal as it once was. Brain chip advocates, however, go even further. They envisage a future in which everyday citizens are endowed with digital telepathy and telekinesis. Mr. Musk, a staunch pro-Trump Make America Great Again activist, until he went off the Trump train there for a while, has also floated the idea of brain chips ending the woke mind virus. That's all related to the technology's potential to store and rewrite memories and treat psychological conditions. Brain implants may sound dystopian, but they are a promising part of neuroscience research, argues Griffith University cybersecurity expert Dr. David Tuffley. But the technology will theoretically allow hackers to access sensitive neural data such as patients' thoughts and memories. Yeah, that's a little disadvantage, I would think. Then it talks about the rise of the cyborgs, brain fade. Brain computer chips are not a done deal yet. Brain fade. And then full story here on news.com in Australia. So it's australianews.com article. So pretty wild. Anyway, very concerning, but, we've known that they want to take us down this path for sure, and to some extent will, because it's all about this show. Breaking news that proves we are living in the end times. I think this type of story certainly is exactly what helps to prove that, if you ask me. All right, and I came across this one. This is more complete chaos and idiocy. It says, just now, this is from yesterday, last night. Just now, NYPD riot police rush in and make arrests of Knicks rioters. Did you know the New York Knicks basketball team won the NBA Finals last night? They're literally, says the cops are literally sprinting down the street and tackling these people. Beautiful. So I thought I would play just a little bit of it just to see what happens. So it is interesting. You do have actual police in New York stopping people from causing problems. I didn't know they knew how to do that.
On the sidewalk! On the sidewalk! On the sidewalk! Keep walking!
Well, you get the idea. Anyway, yeah, they were stopping the rioters. I couldn't believe it. It's go time. Anyway, yeah, the Knicks, apparently, first time they'd won the NBA Finals in a long time. So, of course, that means you got to burn down your city. So that's what people were trying to do. Looks like the police tried to step in at least. I'm not sure how bad it got, but there were, I think there were some other articles about how bad it was. Okay, well, let's move on. This one I thought was highly ironic. I'm sure you guys will as well. How does this happen? Skydive tragedy. 12 people dead after a plane full of skydivers crashes and bursts into flames. It says during takeoff, though. I guess that's the key. Because my question is here, if they had parachutes, how did they all die? It seems like an obvious question. 12 people have died after a plane full of skydivers crashed and burst into flames shortly after takeoff. Private plane leased by a skydiving company crashed just after it took off at 11:20 a.m. in Butler, Missouri. Not Pennsylvania, Butler, Missouri. 60 miles south of Kansas City. So, wow. Very sad. The airplane failed to climb high enough and tried to turn left to land on a nearby highway, but it wasn't able to land and instead crashed into a field about 200 yards away from Butler Memorial Airport, bursting into flames. 11 skydivers and the pilot died in a devastating loss, and emergency services are reportedly checking to see if any passengers jumped from the plane before the crash. So there apparently was a chance of that happening. Although it sounds like it happened really fast. I don't know. Missouri Highway Patrol confirmed the plane was taking people up to skydive. So it could also be that they maybe weren't experienced skydivers. So if that's the case, then obviously, they wouldn't be jumping by themselves anyways. They may not have had the equipment to do solo jumps or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, I thought that was highly ironic, though, that a plane full of skydivers crashed and burned, and everyone was killed. Not even the people who were the coaches or the people who were the trainers or whatever lived. So very strange. Anyway, we've got an update here on the LA mayoral race. Apparently, not looking too good for Spencer Pratt, which is something that is basically as predictable as the sun coming up, because he wouldn't be allowed to win. Didn't see this coming, though. USPS, Postal Service, about to crush mail-in ballot scheme. Okay, mail-in ballots are back. Everyone's talking about them again, thanks to the absolute clown show we just watched unfold in the LA mayor's race. For a minute there, it looked like Spencer Pratt was actually going to beat the Dem machine and make the runoff. Then, right on cue, a tsunami of late arriving mail ballots came crashing in and saved the unpopular Democrat candidate from face-planting. Suddenly, Nithya Raman, the woman who couldn't even win in her own district, was back in the game, and Pratt was shoved out. And Americans were told that this was all super normal, nothing to see here, and just go about your day. What a rigged game. This is exactly why so many Americans don't trust mail-in ballots. Yeah, for obvious reasons. We found all that out during COVID, didn't we? The entire process smells like a tuna factory in July. A Republican, populist, or anti-establishment candidate looks like they're in decent shape to actually challenge the Dems with. And then the inevitable happens. The count drags on for days. Mysterious batches keep rolling in. And somehow the final outcome magically swings toward the Democrat, who looked dead in the water and, in Raman's case, already delivered her concession speech. Yeah, that was pretty bad for her, but now she came in second, I believe. We saw the same game during the 2018 midterms. We saw it again in 2020. Now California is giving everybody yet another reminder of why people have zero faith in these drawn-out ballot counting sagas. Yes, it's election season, not election day. And since the SAVE Act cannot get across the finish line, even with Republicans controlling the House and Senate, Trump has to find another way to stop mail order bleeding before the midterms. And believe it or not, that help may be coming from the U.S. Postal Service. Yes, the post office. Didn't see that one coming, did you? The new USPS proposal could turn into a very big problem for blue states that have built their entire political machine around mass mail voting. I'd say voting fraud. And here is why. Mail-in ballots don't deliver themselves. They run through the Postal Service, which means USPS is sitting right in the middle of this Democrat-run operation. Under this proposal, states would have to hand over voter information tied to each and every mail-in and absentee ballot, along with specific barcodes. That means the system would have to be clean, trackable, and a lot harder to hide behind when the tsunami of late ballots start crashing on shore. Okay, and then here is the Slay News article about how all that works. U.S. Postal Service is advancing a new proposal that would require states to share voter information related to mail-in and absentee ballots, marking the latest step in Trump's ongoing effort to strengthen election integrity and increase transparency in the voting process. Yeah, but the Republicans and the Democrats don't want any part of it. So, says, just to recap, that means only voters on the final participation list will be eligible to even get a mail-in or absentee ballot. That's a very different world from the loosey-goosey mail-in free-for-all. Mail-in ballot free-for-all that we've been watching for years. No more watching ballots float around in the netherworld while we're all told how trustworthy the process is. Well, it's only trustworthy when the Democrat wins. Then it can be trusted. We know this. Anyway, I don't know. I don't think this is going to work, but who knows? Who knows? I could see this being a last-ditch effort type of thing, but I can't imagine that the Democrats who run things like the post office are going to allow something like this to get through. I just can't see it. But that's just me being a realist. Anyway, it is interesting, though, that they're trying to go that route. Anyway, let's see here. Oh, yeah, another big story for this week. Let's look at this one. He had to shave his head, though, to look younger. Judge in Carmelo Anthony case calls the murderer a, quote, nice kid. He was a nice kid. He's just a murderer, but he was a nice kid. He shaved his head so that he would purposely look younger and then therefore get a lesser sentence. Kid you not. Collin County District Judge John Roach defended his decision to bar cameras and live streaming from Carmelo's high-profile murder trial, calling it an easy decision made to protect the fairness of the proceedings, but raised many eyebrows when he called the killer a, quote, nice kid. In a post-verdict interview with WFAA, Roach described the now convicted 19-year-old Carmelo Anthony, as, quote, a nice young man who committed a crime, and he understands today more than any day before the consequences of committing a crime like he did. You think? You think he does? Anthony was sentenced to 35 years in prison last week for the first-degree murder of 17-year-old Austin Metcalf during a Frisco high school track meet in April 2025. The stabbing occurred at Kirkendall Stadium in Frisco, Texas, when Anthony, who was on school suspension and not supposed to be at the event, approached the tent area belonging to the rival Memorial High School. Witnesses said Metcalf told Anthony to leave, and a confrontation ensued. Anthony then pulled out a knife that he had brought and stabbed Metcalf in the chest, piercing his heart. Metcalf died in the arms of his twin brother. Anthony admitted to the stabbing but claimed self-defense. A jury rejected that claim. Judge Roach explained that his camera ban during the interview, yes, it was an easy decision. I'll tell you why. My primary goal is to take in every case, is to make sure the defendant and the prosecution get a fair trial, period. The judge acknowledged that the decision angered some people, but emphasized he was not there to make anyone happy. Roach said he had to balance the media's right to know what was happening with the need to prevent outside commentary or public pressure from influencing the jury's proceedings. Yeah, I think it would have been a whole different thing if people would have gotten a glimpse of the actual folks in the jury, because that could have been very problematic for those jurors, because there were lots of threats afterwards. Just put it that way. From a certain side of people who were supporting the accused, there were a lot of threats being thrown around. Says, I know I made people mad, but I'm not here to make them happy either. As long as I follow the law, I sleep well at night, the judge said. He pushed back against suggestions of any personal connection to the Metcalf family, saying he would not have recognized Jeff Metcalf, Austin's father, before the trial. He defended the jury's verdict, noting the jurors were selected in accordance with the law, heard the facts presented in court, and rendered their decision. Yeah, there was a lot of stories early on, I guess, that the jury for this kid was all white, that he didn't have any black people there to support him, but I don't know if that's true or not. However, I did hear that some of the black people who were interviewed to be jurors literally said they couldn't convict him because they couldn't put a brother in jail. So when you do something like that, when you say that, you are automatically off of the list because your mind is made up. They wouldn't want you as a juror. Doesn't matter your skin color. So apparently there was some of that going on, and those people were not allowed. And I don't know what the final balance was as far as the jurors go, but it's probably a good thing the cameras weren't there, just because, those people would have clearly been caught on camera, as it were, and might not have been too good for their health. So anyways, yeah, so the kid was convicted of 35. He got 35 years, convicted of murder, and, who knows how much of that he will actually serve, but pretty interesting. They didn't go light on him, so that's good. Murder convict Carmelo Anthony says he's broke after raising $625,000. Anthony received his sentence after a jury found him guilty of murdering Metcalf during an altercation in track meet in April 2025. At the time, both men were 17. The penniless description is what was used here, is at odds with the $625,000 that he and his family collected through Give, Send, Go. Anthony raised a six-figure sum after his family and supporters portrayed his prosecution as an example of racial injustice. Anthony, the now convicted aggressor, is black, while Metcalf, who died in his twin brother's arms, was white. Give, Send, Go shut down the fundraiser after the trial concluded in a guilty conviction. The platform has said that the funds were distributed to the Anthony family. So they've apparently already got it. Give, Send, Go collected the funds for him that were donated. So, interesting, huh? So $625,000, but yet he is penniless. And then I came across this one on Gateway Pundit. Switzerland, this is one the globalists will certainly like. Switzerland vote against the measure to stop mass immigration by capping population. Globalist bureaucrats celebrate. So I guess if you're wanting a new home and you're an illegal, move to Switzerland. They want you. Swiss voters narrowly rejected a proposal to cap the country's population at 10 million by 2050. I think we got a few years on that one. According to preliminary referendum results released today, with votes counted in 25 of Switzerland's 26 cantons, roughly 54% opposed the measure, while 46% backed it. So it was somewhat close. Switzerland final results no to Switzerland of 10 million initiative. 45% supported that, almost 55% opposed it, saying no to that cap. Turnout 58.86%. The proposal put forward by the right-wing Swiss People's Party aimed to limit long-term population growth. It comes amid mounting concerns over housing shortages, strained infrastructure, rising costs, and pressure on public services. They must have all nice immigrants moving there, though, because they're not complaining here, apparently, about being raped and killed at the hands of the migrants. My guess is that's probably happening there, too. The result means Switzerland could remain on course to exceed 10 million residents within the next 2 decades. The country's population currently stands around 9.1 million, with government projections showing continued rapid growth. Immigration was the heart of the debate. Roughly 28% of Switzerland's population was born abroad, one of the highest proportions in Europe. Supporters argued the referendum was necessary to prevent overcrowding and preserve Switzerland's quality of life. I didn't think they cared about those types of things in the UK anymore, or over in Europe. The vote was closely watched in Brussels because approval of the measure could have placed Switzerland's free movement agreement with the EU under pressure. We take note of the outcome of today's vote in Switzerland, EU President Ursula von der Leyen wrote on X. The Swiss people have spoken. The EU and Switzerland share deep ties and a strong partnership. Yeah, they sure do when they vote as they are told. I guess they did. So Switzerland is all for it. They want to keep the migrants and they want to have more. They haven't had enough yet. So there you go. Not sure how intelligent that is, but I'll leave that up to you guys to decide that one. Be glad you don't live in Switzerland. All right, and then this one, anti-Trump vandals etched 8647 threat into the National Mall grass near the White House. Federal authorities are launching an investigation. Well, don't you know they are? You can barely even see it here, but you can kind of see it in the grass. There's the 8, and you can see the 7 and the 4 a little bit. The 6 is really hard to read. So they clearly need mowers with better blades or something. I don't know. Federal authorities are investigating large markings spelling out 8647 that were etched into the grass in the National Mall in Washington, D.C. Well, clearly it was James Comey that did it. I mean, has anybody checked his mower? Seems obvious at this point. Here, this incident comes months after former FBI Director James Comey was indicted over his social media post showing seashells arranged to spell out 8647. See, I bet you he did it. He had to have. No one else would even know what that meant. Only he does. And only he, just happened upon the shells that were arranged in that pattern on the beach. He didn't do it himself, obviously. He just walked up and they were just already arranged in that interesting pattern. That's what his tweet said. So you could just say, oh, well, nobody mowed it like this. The grass just grew like this. All by itself, it had an 8 and a 6, and somehow a 4 and a 7 right underneath that. But I will say this, at least it didn't say, down with Israel or, there was nothing anti-Semitic cut into the grass here, because if that were the case, you can bet somebody somewhere would already have been arrested. They'd already be on death row for doing that if it was anti-Semitic. But 8647 it's okay. They're just going to do an investigation. Anyway, Nick Sordor is saying rabid leftists have vandalized the National Mall, etching 8647 in the grass. I don't know. There's plenty of people on the right who might be mowing 8647 into the grass at this point too. Who knows? He doesn't have too many fans these days. There are a few, but not as many as there used to be, that's for sure. All right. Some articles on WNG.org on the SIFT. This is a follow-up. More screwworm cases ID'd in Texas livestock and in a New Mexico dog. So that's not good news. We talked about the screwworms before, which come from flies. And apparently there is even more now. The number of active New World screwworm cases detected in the U.S. rose to 10 by this last Friday morning, up from 6 on Wednesday. June 3rd discovery of the parasitic blowfly larvae in Texas was the first U.S. case in nearly 60 years. Pretty convenient, huh? The new cases of the parasitic worms were found in domestic livestock, including goats and cattle in Texas. The first few U.S. cases of screwworm were only in cattle. A dog in New Mexico was confirmed to have the parasite on June 8th. So there you go. It's in the dogs. Can pretty much count the days. It's going to kill us all. So just watch out. More screwworm cases ID'd. Point is, though, this is probably, like so many other things, a plan. Because it doesn't just disappear for decades only to come back right now. You can bet somebody somewhere wanted it to come back. This is also a follow-up. You might remember this story from, a year ago? Suspect pleads guilty to slaying Minnesota lawmaker and her husband. 58-year-old man admitted in court Thursday that he murdered Melissa and Mark Hortman in June 2025. So yeah, exactly a year ago. Melissa was former Speaker of the Minnesota House of Representatives, Vance Luther Bolter. This guy pleaded guilty to charges of stalking, shooting, and murdering the couple, according to the Department of Justice. Bolter also admitted to stalking and shooting another local politician. State Senator John Hoffman and his wife, Yvette, suffered severe gunshot wounds. Prosecutors accused Bolter of targeting the homes of Democrat state lawmakers while disguised as a police officer in the middle of the night. He admitted to wearing black body armor with a silicone mask and identifying himself as law enforcement to gain entry to their homes. Police later found documents in Bolter's car with names and addresses of many other Democrat state lawmakers. Court documents showed he initially pleaded not guilty to the charges back in August. So what made him change his plea? The shooter agreed to plead guilty in exchange for 2 consecutive life imprisonment terms with an additional 40 years. U.S. District Judge expected the court would accept the deal and would seek expedited sentencing before summer's end. The plea change came days after the Justice Department decided it would not seek the death penalty in Bolter's case. So he gets to live, but he gets to theoretically get out of jail after 2 life sentences and 40 years. So, and he's 58 already. So, anyway, he's hoping he will be able to get out probably on a technicality, but he's not going to be on death row at least. But he probably would be if he'd have mowed 8647 in the national grass in Washington, D.C. At least he didn't do that. Anyways, things are crazy, aren't they? World Cup kicks off with home games from Mexico, Canada, and the U.S. I think I've figured out that pretty much no one in America cares about this whatsoever unless you're an illegal. If you're an illegal, you probably are really into World Cup. Or if you are a migrant or, came into the country perhaps from another country, even legally, you might be into the World Cup. Otherwise, I think most people don't care. Except Tom Cruise. I think Tom Cruise likes it. I saw him on video at one of the games the other day. So I happened to be in a restaurant. We were on vacation, and we were in a restaurant in Florida, and they had the World Cup on the TV, and they happened to show Tom Cruise because they were in L.A. The game was in L.A., and it was U.S. versus Portugal. I don't know exactly what happened. I think U.S. won, but yeah, I quickly learned that it's pretty much only the illegals and maybe people who aren't necessarily legal, but at least immigrants and people who don't necessarily speak English who really care about what we call soccer, football. It really should be called football. American football, I think, is misnamed. But anyway, yeah, I guess some people certainly love the whole soccer thing. I think most Americans could care less, from what I gather. Top International Soccer Championship, projected to span nearly 2 months, began on Thursday with the United States, Mexico, and Canada serving as co-hosts. The historic tournament began with Mexico beating South Africa 2-0 in Mexico City, followed by South Korea beating the Czech Republic national team 2-1 in Guadalajara. The United States will play its first tournament home game against Paraguay on Friday night. That's the one that I saw. It was at least 3-0, so I'm not sure exactly what happened after that. And then why is this tournament historic? FIFA officials introduced a new tournament format this year by adding 16 teams to the field, a 50% increase from the 32-team format used since 1998. So there were a lot more teams and countries involved. The new 48-team tournament will include 104 matches, and a more than 60% increase in matches compared to the last World Cup. Wow. Okay. So the thing to watch, I guess, from what we talked about last week, where I showed the video of the people going down in the sewers, teams of military-age guys, appeared to be illegals. It was dark, so it was hard to tell. At 1, 2, 3 in the morning, going down in the sewers of New York City or that area and doing something and then coming back up several hours later as a group multiple times. And people are saying, well, it could be connected to FIFA because at least one of these matches, perhaps the championship, will be in either New York or New Jersey. I'm not sure which. But it's definitely something to watch out for because there are a lot of people that will be at these games. And I could see where terrorists or someone like that might want to try something, unfortunately. But yeah, FIFA World Cup. So that was, I thought, kind of interesting. And also, while I'm thinking about it, they do have, a very similar opening. Hold on, let me find it. A very similar opening ceremony. Oh yeah, here was the fun in New York. We mentioned the Knicks winning. Here's some more of the fun. Celebration equals burn your city down. And here they are having fun burning the city up in buses and all kinds of stuff. Yeah, but back to FIFA for a second. They do have opening ceremonies similar to like, the Olympics and stuff like that. Well, here is a here's the entire website. I didn't pull up the website because there's a lot of pictures on it, called deadline.com. It's a gallery of the FIFA World Cup opening ceremony photos. And this is one of them that was in there. This is, it's got I guess, either the earth. I don't know if that's the earth in the middle here or a soccer ball or what that is, but it is in this interesting triangle shape that looks a lot like that. So yeah, FIFA World Cup opening ceremony and photos. So I don't know. Very, very interesting, isn't it? And then they have, this one. So I don't know. I'm not into soccer personally. I don't care about much of anything as far as sports go other than hockey. And tonight is could be the final game of the hockey season. It's down to the final two teams, and it's Vegas playing Carolina in the Stanley Cup final tonight. If Carolina wins the game tonight, then they win the Stanley Cup. If Vegas wins, then it goes to a Game 7, and that gets played in a few nights. So that's a little hockey update as well. All right, and then let's see. Oh, yeah. So this is more of the loving and wonderful social enrichment and cultural enrichment that we all get when they bring in illegals and migrants. Teen girl stabbed in UK after Belfast attack. So this is just days after that guy was nearly beheaded in Belfast. 30-year-old man of Pakistani origin was arrested on suspicion of attempted murder. You suppose that's what he's trying to do here? Following the incident, police have reported a 17-year-old girl's been stabbed in the neck in northwest England, just days after a brutal knife attack in Belfast sparked national outrage and anti-immigration riots. Yeah, so this girl gets stabbed. Apparently, it had to be very painful, I'm sure, but she ran away from him. She got away from him. Says the 30-year-old British-born man of Pakistani heritage was arrested on suspicion of attempted murder following the incident in the town of Briarfield, Lancashire, police said on Saturday. Yeah, but he's probably already out, is my guess. The victim's also Pakistani. So the girl he stabbed was also Pakistani. Video footage circulating on social media purports to show the attacker walking up behind the unsuspecting girl who was wearing a hood and stabbed her twice in the neck. Sounds very similar to the young lady on the train, on the light rail train in North Carolina, doesn't it? Yeah, which there's a link here for that article as well. Suspect in murder of Ukrainian refugee unfit for trial. They did decide that the other day, which we can look at, which we kind of, at least I figured that was probably what was going to happen. Let's look at that one. Yeah, suspect in murder of Ukrainian refugee unfit for trial. The charges against the man accused of killing Irina Zaruska could be dismissed if a judge agrees with his psychiatric evaluation. But again, even though we all saw him do it many, many times to Carlos Brown, just stabbing this innocent, beautiful girl and killing her, he proceeded to say, I got that white girl at least twice afterwards while he's walking around, and he proceeds to take off his hoodie that he's got on right here. He takes it off because it has blood on it, and he attempts to hide it, and he tries to get away. All of that tells me he knew exactly what he did, and he knew exactly what he was doing, at least through some part of that, the killing part and the trying to get away part, because he didn't just stay right there with her. He tried to escape. Just by having the ability to think through that tells me he knew exactly what he was doing. But the point is, he had the right skin color, she had the wrong skin color, and therefore he doesn't get charged because he has the right skin color. That's where we are. So anyways, yeah, the homeless man accused of fatally stabbing 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee Irina Zaruska could see charges against him dropped after he was deemed unfit to stand trial. Several U.S. media outlets reported, citing a motion filed by his attorney. He was previously indicted by a federal grand jury in the case, which could lead to the death penalty. Zaruska was killed on a train last August in Charlotte. Surveillance footage shows DeCarlos Brown, 34, stabbing her 3 times in the neck in what appeared to be an unprovoked assault. Which, of course it was. She was just sitting in front of him. The man was arrested shortly afterward and charged with first-degree murder. But he did try and get away. According to a motion filed on Tuesday, Brown was evaluated at the Central Regional Hospital in late December and found to be not competent to stand trial. I wonder what you would have to do to be deemed not competent to stand trial. Wouldn't you just have to act crazy even if you were completely sane? How easy or how difficult would that be? If you really wanted to act crazy and you're totally sane, don't you think you could do it? Don't you think you could pull it off? If you were completely crazy and you wanted to act sane, could you do it? Of course not. It says under North Carolina law, a defendant must be deemed capable of understanding the nature of the proceedings, comprehend their situation, and assist in their defense in a rational manner. The defendant's lawyer asked the court to delay his competency hearing, initially scheduled for April 30th, by 180 days. The defense also argued that the capacity hearing cannot take place as long as Brown remains in federal custody, and that the court cannot order his capacity restored while he is behind bars. If a judge agrees with the psychiatric evaluation, charges against Brown will be dismissed. A court ruling could still allow the charges to be refiled if he ever regains the capacity to be tried. So what will they do? Will they just let him go? The mothers of the man claims he is schizophrenic. Brown has a lengthy criminal record that includes robbery with a dangerous weapon and now murder that he's not going to have to pay for. So yeah. Again, if you have the right skin color and act the right way, you get away with it. As long as you take care of, meaning get rid of, a person with the correct skin color. So now think about this. What if he stabbed and killed a think if it wasn't a Ukrainian young lady who sat in front of him, but instead was a well-known Jewish female, or even a Jewish male. Do you think he would get away with it? Or do you think that the judge and the courts would somehow mysteriously find that he is competent to stand trial? If he would have killed a Jewish person, do you think he would have gotten away with it? Or is it just when it is a Ukrainian refugee and her family? I don't know. Just thinking out loud here, but it seems to me like that would probably be the case. All right. So anyways, enough of those crazy stories for the moment. But that is, again, breaking news that proves we are living in the end times. I think so. All right. This one from Wine Press. Ford CEO, as in, the cars, Ford cars. Ford CEO says you shouldn't repair your car because you could potentially lose your life, and says that they're too complex for do-it-yourselfers. They are complex. I would definitely give him that. But it says that Ford CEO Jim Farley recently drew controversy after he claimed that people who lease or own a Ford vehicle should not be able to repair it because modern vehicles are far too complex and dangerous and could cause owners to lose their lives in the process, and therefore should bring them into registered dealers to get their vehicles repaired, further stirring the pot in the right to repair debate that is ongoing in society at the moment. Yeah, that is where they're headed. They're trying to make it, I don't know that this article says this, but I did hear this recently, that they are trying to make it illegal to repair your own vehicle. Did you hear what I said? They're trying to outlaw the ability to repair your own vehicle so that if and when it breaks down, which it's designed to do as quick as possible in some cases, then you will have to buy their electric vehicle or whatever they can totally control. You can't repair it. You just have to scrap it and get another one. That's where we're headed. That's where they're trying to take us. So anyway, there's the videos that are embedded here. This is just a step. Trying to make it sound like if you work on your own car, there's a good chance you could end your own life because you won't know what you're doing. So anyway, yeah, it's crazy, huh? Number of auto mechanics came forward and rebuked the Ford CEO for his comments, saying that they are unfounded and tone deaf, claiming not only is he oversimplifying the problem, he himself is directly responsible for not having a competent labor force that wants to work at Ford. The staff does not have the necessary ever-growing education to do the job, and extra overtime required to make repairs, the absolute shoddy quality of modern vehicles, not just Ford, etc. Yeah, they're not talking about only American vehicles. They're talking about just in general, new current vehicles. All car manufacturers are guilty of this to varying degrees these days, but when I ever get a new used vehicle, an older one at that, one that is smart, I am probably going to get an Asian model. I am sick of kowtowing to these American brands that hate us, sell us out, and overcharge for everything so the CEOs can live cushy lives, while their products are junky and overpriced. Guess that means I am not a patriot according to some of the authoritarian bootlickers in this country. But we see another reason why they want people driving newer models and not older vehicles. They need to control your data and habits, and to get you into a vehicle you'll never own and can hardly be worked on, which I think I just said that. The car market in general is still a total unmitigated clown show too. Yeah, it is. Anyway, best thing to do is to, if you've got an older model car, keep it running and don't trade up, because chances are you are not trading up at all. You're just going to be counting the days before you can no longer work on it yourself or repair it yourself, or are forced to get something that they want you in, like an EV or whatever. Anyway, thought this one was interesting. This came out a few days back. CEO of major AI company calls for a global pause in AI development to address growing threat to humanity. They're monitoring everything. They're watching you, but who's watching the watchers? Notice he is at the World Economic Forum. Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei. Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei has called for a global pause in AI development. You suppose he's just trying to be the good cop here or something? To address safety concerns regarding the rapid advancement of AI systems, he expressed a concern that these systems may soon be capable of self-improvement without human oversight. He calls it beyond human AI. Anthropic owns the AI chatbot system known as Claude. Yeah, but they're also a defense contractor, basically. The fear is AI will soon be able to learn to rewrite their own code. They would be able to generate new knowledge as opposed to just mimicking human knowledge and act on their own. In short, they will no longer be under human control. He said, humanity is about to be handed almost unimaginable power, and it is deeply unclear whether we possess the maturity to wield it. So it's a good point. Anthropic is proposing that the world's top artificial intelligence companies come up with a coordinated way to pause development of advanced AI systems or risk losing control. Well, you know what they're going to say? They're going to say, well, China's not going to agree to this. Therefore, we have to beat China. Therefore, we have to keep going. I can hear him now. Yeah, it says, I don't know about you, but this has the look and feel of a psyop meant to convince the masses that someone in the AI industry actually cares about their disappearing jobs, privacy, and basic human value. Talk about the fox guarding the henhouse. What so-called safeguards would these technocratic elites possibly offer that would truly put the AI genie back in the bottle? I think so, too. I think this is a key paragraph that Leo Hohmann has written here, because it's what I said when I started reading this article. It sounds like he's just trying to play good cop. Another company acting as a virtual arm of the government on the federal, state, and local level is Palantir. So Leo says, I've written extensively on this company over the last couple of years, so I won't go into all the government pots in which its hands are actively stealing our private data. Suffice it to say that they have been building digital dossiers on millions of law-abiding American citizens and legal immigrants through contracts that they have with the IRS, with ICE, with the FBI, the DOD, CIA, HHS, and numerous other three-letter agencies, along with state and local police departments. Palantir and Flock are just two of hundreds of companies cashing in on the surveillance state. So once again, another good article from Leo Hohmann on his Substack. Okay, it's 1946 poem by the late Martin Niemöller, penned after World War II. It's one that has stuck with me my entire life, and I wish more Americans would pay attention to it, so I'll read it real quick. It is a good one. I'm sure you've heard it. First they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unions, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me. So, good point. There's another Leo Hohmann Substack that I wanted to pull up. This really has a bit more to do with the first video that we watched tonight. Senator Tom Cotton tries to sneak bizarre amendment into mega funding bill that would require U.S. to share virtually all intelligence information with the Israeli government. Quiet insertion of new section to Intelligence Authorization Act of 2027 comes on the heels of the House amendment to the NDAA that would mandate U.S. military to share technology breakthroughs with Israel. So this is a second part of this. This is actually not just the NDAA that we've talked about so much on the show, the Section 224. This is actually an additional piece to the puzzle here. It says if that wasn't bad enough, there's an even more questionable piece of legislation now being advanced in the U.S. Senate that seeks to merge the two nations' intelligence gathering operations in the Middle East. Buried deep inside the Senate's 192-page Intelligence Authorization Act of 2027 is Section 622, titled United States-Israel Intelligence Sharing Enhancement, quote unquote. It would require the president acting through the Director of National Intelligence and, as necessary, the Secretary of War to, quote, expand and enhance intelligence sharing with the government of Israel on a list of subjects that encompasses almost every topic of intelligence interest in the Middle East. And don't you know, they will be involved in everything if they aren't already, which I think they probably already are. So that just means that the U.S. will be obligated to share and pay for everything. So there you go. Senator Tom Cotton is all about it. Republican Senator of Arkansas. But I bet he won't get primaried like Thomas Massey of Kentucky just was. No, he's on the right side of things, meaning Israel's side. And if you're on Israel's side, you get to stay in power in Congress forever. Forever. All right, got a few Substacks here from Michael Snyder. Thought there were several good ones on his Substack post. Michael Snyder's Substack. The Godzilla El Nino that has now begun could do trillions of dollars of damage to the global economy. Very intense El Nino has formed in the equatorial waters of the Pacific much earlier than originally anticipated, and we are being warned that it could cause trillions of dollars, with the T, of damage to the global economy. And just a little sidebar, don't you know, if they're warning that this will happen, they have plans to make it happen. It is the scheduled weather. But I digress. Considering everything else that is going on in our world right now, that is really bad news. It's being projected that the El Nino that has developed in the southern Pacific is likely to rapidly transform into a, quote, super El Nino of frightening strength, and it will look just like this. At the same time, a 9,000-mile marine heat wave has developed in the northern Pacific. Many believe that these two marine heat waves will combine to form a Godzilla El Nino, which will be unlike anything we've ever experienced before. Again, the geoengineers, the climate and weather manipulating people at the top will certainly have this on their agenda, wreaking further destruction. Says last week we received official confirmation that the El Nino has officially formed in the Pacific. So it's something Mr. Dane has been talking about quite a bit on his weekly broadcast, Global Alert News. And this is Michael Snyder's Substack. He's picked up on this as well. I don't know that he's attributing anything to geoengineering necessarily, although he does talk about it sometimes. The strongest El Nino on record was the Super El Nino of 1877 and 78. The Super El Nino is one of the primary reasons why approximately 50 million people starved to death during the Great Famine of 1876 and 1876 to 1878. In 2026, farmers all over the world are already dealing with seemingly endless drought, much higher diesel prices, and unprecedented fertilizer crisis. Yeah, they've already got all that going against them, and now we've got the weather even being more of a problem here. Now we're being told the El Nino has just formed could have multiplier effect on wheat, rice, and corn, which are already at risk due to reduced fertilizer availability. Yeah, we were driving back through Alabama yesterday, coming home from the beach. We did have a good trip, though. Thank you guys for asking about that. We did have a good trip, and I was noticing, though, driving through Alabama, and there were a lot of crops that were in. I was happy to see that. And a lot of corn. I was surprised to see how many corn crops there were in Alabama. I had no idea. But, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. But imagine, though, if the U.S. will have trouble, how much worse it will be in other countries as far as being able to get fertilizers and plant and stuff like that. Not going to be good. So this El Nino issue is going to be a big one for sure. Godzilla-sized, apparently. Yeah, in wealthy countries such as the U.S., food prices will go even higher. In poorer countries all over the planet, many of those that are currently hungry will soon be starving. And many of those that are currently starving will soon die. So that's just what I was alluding to. The number of people in the world that were experiencing acute hunger was already at a record high before the war with Iran even started. The war took our troubles to a new level, and now a Godzilla El Nino threatens to change everything. So keep an eye out. Make sure you keep your pantry stocked. Mr. Dane always tells me that. Keep your pantry stocked. We just don't know. And things are not going to get any better, most likely. All right, and then this one also from same guy. And I get quite a few people who subscribe to my Substack from a recommendation through Michael Snyder's Substack. So thank you guys and welcome. Not sure how many actually hear the live broadcast, but I do have some people that are Michael Snyder folks following me as well. So I think that's cool. I found this one on his Substack as well for paid subscribers, which I'm not. However, I can see why you might want to be. We are the Book of Revelation generation is the name of this one. This is such an exciting time to be alive. Again, this is Michael Snyder's Substack. A lot of people out there look at things that are going on in our world today, and they think that it's all bad news. In fact, I received an email from someone accusing me of spreading doom and gloom because I'm accurately reporting what is happening in the Middle East. Again, this is Michael Snyder talking here. But I am not a doom and gloomer at all. There is no other time in human history that I would have rather lived than right now. We are the Book of Revelation generation. And we are the ones that will prepare the way for the return of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Jesus gave us very specific signs to watch for that would indicate that his return was drawing near. I completely agree. He didn't give us those signs so that we would be afraid. Instead, he gave us those signs so that we could have peace in the midst of the storm, or even in the midst of a super El Nino. If God didn't think that you could handle what is happening, he wouldn't have put you here. Yeah, it takes you back to the scripture that says you were born for such a time as this. So definitely don't forget that. God knew about all of this in advance. He's in control, and he has a plan for you. So the truth is that everyone that gets down and depressed when they see what is going on in our world today is taking the exact wrong approach. God doesn't want us to break down emotionally and throw a tantrum when we are faced with great challenges. He wants us to be strong and courageous. He wants us to embrace the adventures that he has set before us. I have a job to do. You have a job to do. Each one of us has a job that is unique. I can't do what you're supposed to do because I don't have your skills and abilities. Your destiny is for you alone. Remember that. Your destiny is for you alone. Hopefully I can help to inspire you to fulfill that destiny and become everything that God created you to be. When bad things happen, and they will, it is important to have the proper perspective. Much of the global population will think that the world is ending as prophetic events play out, but we know differently. There is a redemptive purpose to all the events that are going to happen. Every time there is a great shaking of some kind, the purpose is to shake people up so much that they will realize that they really do need a Savior. Right now, hearts are so hard. It is going to take a tremendous amount of shaking to soften those hearts, and that is precisely what is ahead of us. In Matthew 24, Jesus specifically warned us that the world would experience war, famine, and pestilence in the days just before his return. And here's the scripture about that. You guys know this. We also see that those same three elements are being mentioned in Revelation 6. When the Lamb opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth living creature say, "Come." I looked, and there before me was a pale horse. Its rider was named Death, and Hades was followed close behind him. They were given power over a fourth of the earth to kill by sword, famine, and plague, and by the wild beasts of the earth. It is not a coincidence that war, famine, and pestilence are in the headlines right now. We really are living in the end days. So, this does go on, I guess, if you are a paid subscriber. So pretty cool. Pretty cool, and that's available just down to what I read there quite a bit on Michael Snyder's Substack. So good stuff. And there was one more on his Substack that I wanted to mention. Again, for paid subscribers, we won't get fooled again. My reaction to the insane events of the past 24 hours. I was going to look at this just to see what he's talking about exactly. Yeah, will it be war or will it be peace? I realize that there's so much confusion out there right now. In fact, it appears that the Trump administration and the Iranians are both extremely confused about what is going on. As I started to write this article, I was reminded of the lyrics to a song by a band called Genesis that was popular when I was growing up. I remember this song. You guys remember Land of Confusion? In the video, they had like puppets, and they had Ronald Reagan and some other, puppets of some other actual puppets, playing puppets of the day in about 1986 or so, I think it was. It's a good song. Here's the lyric. I must have dreamed 1,000 dreams, been haunted by 1,000,000 screams, but I can hear the marching feet, and they're moving into the street. Now, did you read the news today? They're saying They say the danger's gone away, but I can see the fires still alight. They're burning into the night. There's too many men, too many people making too many problems, and not much love to go around. Can't you see this is a land of confusion? So that is Genesis' song from, again, mid to late 80s, and Phil Collins singing that. We really are living in a land of confusion. So many people are convinced that peace and safety are just around the corner. We just said this earlier tonight. And so when we try to share the truth with them and warn them about what is coming, we often find that hearts have grown so hard, but we can't give up because there is so much at stake. In 1900, there were approximately 1.6 billion people living on this planet. Today, there's approximately 8.3 billion people. The destinies of 8.3 billion precious souls are hanging in the balance, and so we must keep fighting. I want to encourage you to keep on doing what you have been called to do. No matter what circumstances you find yourself in, you can make a difference. So, pretty cool. Anyway, there's a bit more here on his Substack. So yes, we won't get fooled again. Let's hope not. All right, let's go back to our good friend, Mr. Brian here, and let's read a little bit more from Revelation1823.net, which again is a friend of mine's website. Really, really good information, all based around, of course, Revelation 18:23 and further scriptures, mostly Revelation, and then, you know, about all of these various, very important things that we've all witnessed pretty recently. And, you know, you have the combining of this information to put us in these end times. Vaccination history, the COVID-19 agenda, the beast system, and Mark of the Beast. And there's tons and tons of information on this website. So I thought I would start with where I left off. So if you guys saw last week, you heard the first part of this homepage. So let's read a bit more on this homepage. Let's pause here and answer some common objections. My pastor says the book of Revelation hasn't started yet. You guys heard this argument? I have. The revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave unto him to show unto his servants things which must shortly come to pass. That's from Revelation 1:1. Must shortly come to pass. Would it surprise you to find out the exact opposite view was held until the late 1800s? Simply put, the eschatology of historicism, which teaches the book of Revelation is up and running, was held by everyone before it was hijacked by the doctrine of Jesuit futurism. This is explained in detail in the 4th section of eschatology, which we'll get there eventually. Confused, ? The onion quarry contains the answers. Look to the rock from which you were cut, and to the quarry from which you were hewn. Isaiah 51:1. My friends, as we progress, there will be a gut reaction to dismiss and defend. That being said, truth is truth, is it not? So let's heed the words of Isaiah as he inspires us to know the layered history of our Christian heritage, our quarry. Second objection. The sorcery or pharmakia of Revelation 18:23 is not happening because there is no way we are that far into the book! ! First, the vaccination industry is over 200 years old, right? And second, the book of Revelation was written in a chiastic pattern commonly found in Greek literature, in which the various parts mirror each other, meaning it's not in chronological order, something I've been saying for many years. It's not in chronological order and repeats itself here and there. Thus, Revelation 18:23 is happening at the same time as the Mark of the Beast. Mark of the Beast, Revelation 13, will be happening. Again, explained in detail in the 4th section of eschatology, also on this website. Third objection. Doesn't Revelation 6:12-14 say, the sun became black, the moon became as blood, and the stars fell unto the earth, and have in heaven departed as a scroll? None of that has happened, or has it? Good question. Biblical prophecy is often veiled in symbolic language, as we see here in the very first chapter, Revelation 1:20 tells us the stars represent angels. The candlesticks are churches, etc. The verses given in Revelation 6 simply illustrate the judgment of governmental systems as they did in the Old Testament. Need an example? Here's the example. For the stars of heaven and the constellations thereof shall not give their light. The sun shall be darkened in his going forth, and the moon shall not cause her light to shine. Isaiah 13:10, all referring to the past judgment of Babylon. But why does sorcery mean pharmakia in Revelation 18:23? For by thy sorceries, pharmakia, were all nations deceived. Revelation 18:23. This is one of the key, probably the key scripture, really, for the whole website. For by thy sorceries, pharmakia, were all nations deceived. According to the Thayer Greek dictionary, pharmakia is the use or administering of drugs, poisoning, and sorcery, magical arts, often found in connection with idolatry and fostered by it. Simply put, pharmakia is where we get our English word pharmacy. Did you get that? Our Lord chose this word because he knew this would be the main tool that would be used to deceive people in the last days. Pharmakia is connected to fear, sorcery, lies, idolatry, and adultery in a strong religious bond of faith and trust. It causes one to put their faith in the merchant's deception, safe and effective, while allowing them to defile your temple with every poison under the sun. Pharmakia is associated with abortion, fetal cells, which is Moloch worship, child human sacrifice, and animal sacrifice. These abominations are used to create the false illusion of protection and healing, while offering a false hope and false peace. This is from a website called ifapray.org. Participation in pharmakia without repentance forfeits the person's right to enter the kingdom of God, and participation without repentance prevents a person from receiving the Holy Spirit. End quote. So I'll let you guys kind of process some of that. I thought that was all really, really good, and pharmakia is a huge part of this whole thing. So next week we'll pick up with next point is the candle of Revelation 18:23, the Holy Spirit. So we'll go from there. If you guys want to read ahead, feel free to do that. You're always welcome to, of course. This website is live, revelation1823.net, and there's no spaces or colons or capital letters or anything like that. It's just revelation1823.net is where it is. So yeah, there's lots here, and again, we'll read a little bit of this website every week. There's so much here, and I think it's all really important that we get the gist of what's being said here on this website so that we can connect some very important need-to-know dots. All right? So again, we'll come back to that next week as well. Yeah, so this is on AJ's site, alexjoneslive.com. Let the oil flow. President Trump announces deal reached with Iran to fully reopen the Strait of Hormuz. So he says. So this is dated this evening. Covered this at the beginning of the show, looking to see if there's anything new here that I wanted to announce. Well, he's saying that the strait's going to be reopened and all this stuff. And that could be, if this actually does work out, it could be, but know that there are some details here that they're not exactly being honest about. I'm looking to see if that information is in here. Okay, here's the nuclear information. We'll look at that in a minute, just a minute. I'm looking to see what they're calling these fees. They had a different name for them. They're not calling them tolls anymore. They're calling them something different. So now Trump can say they got rid of the tolls. Well, they're not calling them tolls. They're calling them something else, but there still will be a fee involved. So it's those sort of half-truths is what I'm getting at. Says the negotiation comes as Trump on Sunday morning chastised Israel for attacking Beirut, Lebanon, killing 3 people as details of the deal were being finalized, with Israeli authorities claiming they were targeting Hezbollah terrorists. Now, they always say that. The critical Strait of Hormuz shipping channel through which oil and other Middle East commodities flow has been closed for over 100 days. And for the U.S. and Israel launched joint strikes on Iran at the end of February. Shehbaz Sharif, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, confirmed that both sides have declared the immediate and permanent termination of military operations on all fronts, including in Lebanon. That's where I said, yeah, right. I don't think Israel is going to agree to any of this stuff. The deal is set to be signed in Switzerland on Friday. We'll see. We'll see if they make it that long. Friday is the 19th. So yeah, that's a while. That's a while yet. Anything can happen in 5 days. Popular X-user and podcaster Mario Nafal noted details of the deal published by Iran mentioned the strait would reopen under its control, while one clause only reiterated Iran's commitment not to produce nuclear weapons. The nuclear clause is number 9, clause 9. Iran reiterates its commitment to not produce nuclear weapons. That's it. No enrichment cap, no dismantlement, no inspector access beyond existing frameworks, Nafal reported. The actual nuclear terms get negotiated in a separate 60-day window, and Clause 14 explicitly removes Iran's missile program and support for resistance groups from the agenda entirely, permanently. So, the whole Iran thing isn't really even part of this. I mean, the whole nuclear Iran thing isn't really even part of this. So, interesting, huh? So, there's a few more details on this particular article. Looking to see if I missed anything. I don't think so. There's some videos embedded as well. Oh, yeah. I did come across this. I don't know. I haven't watched it because it's a 15-minute video. I didn't have time when I came across it right before going live tonight. So I thought I would link to this. You guys can watch this if you want. It's from a X account called The Patriot Voice. It says, this may be the most important video you ever watch, which usually means it won't be. But it says, remember back during the 2024 presidential campaign, Trump would often say that this was the final battle. It's because he was being literal. We have to come to terms with the truth. Trump is a willing bond servant of the Chabad Lubavitch. We've heard other people talk about this as well. His assassination attempt in Butler was a staged public ritual, piercing his ear, which was required to prove his allegiance. Trump is now forever marked by his masters. Yeah, I mean, I get it. I understand that. I don't know how you would make that shot, though, without blowing his head off. It seems to me like they were trying to kill him, and for whatever reason, he turned his head, and then they were able to then say, well, we could have killed you if we wanted to, but we chose not to, and we meant to do it like this. And then, hold his feet to the fire, perhaps, at that point. I don't know. I'm just guessing here. But it says, Trump is now forever marked by his masters. Trump's engagement with Iran is the final battle, which will lead to the biblical battle of Armageddon, the building of the third temple, and ultimately the arrival of the Jewish Moshiach, a.k.a. the man of lawlessness, or the Christian Antichrist, beast of Revelation. So that's pretty interesting, huh? Trump will absolutely see this through, doing whatever he has to do to make this happen. This could explain why he seems so much more chaotic and erratic this term, which he definitely is, no question. Fact of the matter is, they see Trump as the forerunner to the aforementioned Antichrist. It does not matter if you don't believe it, they do. It does not matter about your trust the plan propaganda nonsense, they laugh at you. This is not simply my speculation, but it is on the record from many Chabad rabbis. Listen to what the rabbi at the end of this video says. It's the ultimate confirmation of the obvious, right from the horse's mouth. This isn't just another war in the Middle East. This is the war of absolutely biblical proportions, and Trump is leading the way to bring in the Messianic age. a.k.a. Pax Judicia. So that is interesting, huh? Let's play just a little of this, and I'll skip to the end. It says, listen to what the rabbi at the end of the video says. Let me see if I can find that. All right, here we go. We'll pick it up with this, and again, we'll link to this on the Substack post that I send out, so make sure you're on that list.
Captured this moment of Trump rising defiantly before all the world with a bloodied ear. This assassination attempt, however, was actually Trump's global initiation as Shabbat's loyal bondservant, the Messiah ben Joseph, otherwise known as the Forerunner. Trump, like Cyrus the Great before him, would be the non-Jewish Messiah, obtaining riches, subduing nations, and pursuing titles of greatness, who will conquer the enemies of the Jews so that they can destroy Al-Aqsa Mosque and rebuild the temple. And if you remember, in Trump's first term, he broke with tradition and moved the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem, recognizing it as the capital of Israel. He assassinated Qasem Soleimani during his first term, and he was the one who greenlit the Pentagon's active planning phase for this war we are currently watching years before it officially kicked off. Now, if you think I'm crazy, maybe you'll believe the Shabbat rabbi, Isser Weisberg.
The current non-Jewish Messiah was chosen to be of service to the Jewish people and the Jewish Messiah. President Trump's right ear was grazed in a symbolic gesture of Exodus 21:6, where the Torah states that a servant who wants to remain with his master needs to have his right ear pierced. Trump was designated as God's servant and anointed one, just like Cyrus the Great almost 2,400 years ago. We have clarified in several videos that the absolute deadline for the redemption is by the end of the Jewish year 5787, which corresponds to October 2nd, 2027. Thus, the redemption will surely occur during Donald Trump's tenure. And I have good reason to believe Donald Trump was chosen to be the one to redeem the sins of Esav through offering his assistance in rebuilding the Holy Temple on the Temple Mount and establishing the Jewish kingdom over all of mankind in Jerusalem. Perhaps it is no accident that the numeric value of Donald Trump in Hebrew is the same as Messiah, son of David, Mashiach ben David, 424. However, Donald Trump is mistaken if he thinks he was chosen to make America great again. But America will never become a great country on its own, because Esav's days are numbered. All our elite institutions and centers of power and influence are rotten through and through. The majority of Americans under 30 who are college educated and who are the future leaders of America support the vicious monsters of Hamas rather than the holy and courageous soldiers of the IDF. No human being, even Donald Trump, can reverse this. No, the greatness of America does not lie in its own success. America will be great when the Messiah comes, and the leader of this country, on behalf of all the good people in this country, will humbly present himself to the Jewish Messiah and ask him to accept the United States of America into a new alliance of countries who accept the leadership of the Messiah. A new United Nations will replace the current cesspool that goes by that fraudulent name. A real United Nations, united to serve God, led by the Messiah and based in Jerusalem. And my feeling is that the United States under President Trump will be the first nation to join.
It doesn't matter if you believe this. What matters is that he believes this, and so do many other Jews in the Shabbat movement, which is pro-Israel, it's Zionist, it's genocidal, and according to this confidential human source in the Epstein files, it controls the White House. So this war you are witnessing in Iran is not merely the production of AIPAC lobbying or Netanyahu or Epstein blackmail. This is not something Trump has been coerced into doing. It is something that he willingly signed up for because, as we all know, Trump is interested in pursuing greatness and legacy. This relationship with his Jewish masters has given him the ability to achieve this. By willingly becoming their servant, they have anointed him as the Messiah, giving rise to the final world order where the Messiah ben David will rule the world from Jerusalem. Without the Shabbat Jews, Trump would not be president. He would not have made it thus far. If he succeeds in Iran on behalf of Israel, he will be remembered as the second greatest figure in Jewish history, the forerunner who made the Messianic age possible. And this doesn't just please the Jews, it also pleases the Christian Zionists who are interested in an apocalyptic final battle that will bring about Jesus Christ. So when we tell you that this is more than just another bombing of the Middle East, we mean it. The Iran war is literally a battle of biblical proportions. It has geopolitical, religious, and eschatological implications. That's why Muslim scholars all over the region are saying this is a major battle between Islam and its enemies. This is a war meant to trigger the Messianic age and establish Pax Judaica, the new Jewish empire.
Okay, well, you get the idea, and I think that this guy is exactly right. Just based on what I saw here on this short clip that we watched, the full video is a bit longer, obviously. But yeah, I mean, Trump, seems to me, was put in place for whatever reason, whoever did so, for these exact reasons. And that's why I think that this peace deal that's currently on the table that we've talked about tonight at length won't last. either almost instantaneously or it won't last for long, because the Israelis will not allow it to happen. They won't allow peace to happen. And that guy sort of explained that in that video clip, I think. So it is completely biblical as far as the folks that are running the show, you know. And when I say biblical, I just mean their scriptures. You know, the Torah is only a small part of it. They're using the Zohar and whatever other scriptures that are very questionable, let's say, and certainly not of Christ. In fact, completely anti-Christ. And yeah, Trump seems to be playing his part really well for them. And I could see the third temple coming about while he's president. It just makes total sense. So we will see. We'll see where it goes. But I came across that video post and wanted to share that with you guys because I thought it was pretty interesting. It's the Patriot Voice on X, if you happen to be on there. You can watch the full video. So anyway, let's keep moving here, though. We've still got quite a few articles and different things to look at tonight. So here's the next one. This one is a website that I've referred to in the past, although not recently, really. Just the way it's worked out. ReclaimTheNet.org. It's a good site. Starmer calls for spyware on all phones. It is sold as a child lock and built as a search warrant for every phone in the country. Of course, they're talking UK here, but you might as well say eventually for the entire US, because we all know who's in charge in the UK, and it's not this guy. Keir Starmer is certainly not in charge. He's simply a puppet to others, meaning King Charles III and whoever else. Keir Starmer, British Prime Minister, strode onto a stage at London Tech Week and handed Apple, Google, and friends a 3-month ultimatum with all the menace of a substitute teacher confiscating phones at the door. Build us controls that stop children from taking, sharing, or viewing nude images. Switch them on by default across every phone and tablet already humming away in the nation's pockets, and look sharp about it. That was his quote. This government will not stand by while children are put at risk online, he announced. Yeah, this is from someone who is known to be involved in child trafficking. So isn't that rich? Before adding the line that every tech executive in the room heard as a polite threat. Today I'm calling on the tech companies to introduce device-level controls to prevent child from taking, sharing, or viewing nude images. And if they don't act, we will, he says. Stirring stuff, nobody wants children harmed, and saying so out loud is the cheapest applause line in British politics. Yeah, and of course they don't mean it. They do want the surveillance, though, for sure. The trouble is that the two innocent-looking words tucked into the speech like a wasp in a picnic basket, the words device level. Here's what device level means once you peel off the cuddly branding. To catch one naughty photo on your phone, something has to inspect every photo on your phone, all of them. And it says it's the software that leans over your shoulder the instant you raise your camera, squints at whatever you are making, and decides whether you may keep it or it gets reported to the authorities. Engineers named this trick years ago client-side scanning. And even Apple, a company that would happily sell you the air inside its packaging, good point, built a version of it in 2021 and then sprinted away from the idea the moment people worked out what it did to private messaging. The worst part is what it does to encryption. End-to-end encryption is meant to mean nobody in the middle can read your stuff, not the app, not your internet provider, not a bored government with a search warrant fetish. Client-side scanning waltzes around all of that by reading your photo on your own device first before the encryption clicks it shut. The lock on the front doors stay bolted. There's just a man with a clipboard standing in your hallway jotting notes before you turn the key. The math survives. The privacy, meanwhile, is dead. Step back and admire how casually people are treating this. A government politely asking every phone maker to install a tiny invigilator inside the camera lens, marking your snapshots as they form, would have been thrown out of a Black Mirror writer's room a decade ago for being too on the nose. Yeah, so anyway, it goes on. We know what they want to do. They do want to surveil and scan literally everything, and I'm afraid that's probably what they're going to get, unfortunately. Does seem to be the case. So that is a Reclaim the Net article. And this one's a very strange one. It says, not satire. 71 Jewish girls rescued from a New York sewer tunnel. From New York sewer tunnels, it says, after wandering off during a field trip. 71 Jewish girls rescued from New York sewer tunnels after wandering off during a field trip. How does that even happen? Well, I never expected to type this sentence, but we have a Jewish tunnels update. Remember this? Yeah, this is from a while back. January 2024. I'm sure you guys remember this. At least 10 Jewish people have been arrested in connection to a bizarre secret underground tunnel brawl at the Shabbat headquarters in Crown Heights, New York. Yeah, you guys probably remember this with the guy coming up between the coming up from the sewer system down there through that grill. Well, apparently the Jews still yearn for the tunnels because this happened on Wednesday. And this is a video clip. It's a little bit longer, so I'm not going to play it, but it's an explanation of what happened. 71 children from an Orthodox Jewish school have been rescued from underground tunnels connected to a sewer system in New York. What else has been happening in the sewer systems in New York? We've talked about that in the last couple weeks. We have the groups of men going down in the sewers, doing who knows what at 2 and 3 in the morning, and then coming back out several hours later before daylight. And that's why what I was saying before about the whole FIFA thing. Maybe it's connected, maybe it's not. The children reportedly got lost on a trip after they began exploring what was down there. How did they even get into the sewer system? It says, no, it wasn't 7 kids who wandered off from the field trip. It was 71. 71. They were only spotted by an officer who happened to see them between the sewer grates. Were the teachers that oblivious? Here is News 12's Westchester coverage here about the field trip in a town north of Manhattan. Officials say a group of about 70 teenage girls from the Torres Emachu school in Muncie were on a school trip in Memorial Park in Nyack and entered a large drainage culvert which collects the majority of water runoff for the village. Police were alerted when an Orangetown police officer noticed numerous young girls exiting a sewer grate in an alley off Main Street in the village of Nyack. The girls explored the village's underground tunnels, which runs mostly under Nyack and emerges in certain places. Most of the group was found at Main and Franklin Streets. All of the students were able to exit the culvert on their own, and no one was seriously injured. The girls apparently wandered into the culvert entrance at a park, walked half a mile, and got lost. No source can tell us how a school field trip just straight up loses 71 kids in the sewers. How about that for a weird story? Yeah, I mean, where are the teachers? Just the girls. I don't know. I mean, how does that happen? Told you that was a weird one. All right. Looks like DNI, Tulsi Gabbard, Director of National Intelligence, is trying to do something here before she leaves. DNI Gabbard reveals evidence of U.S. taxpayer-funded Global Biolab program. So again, U.S. taxpayer-funded Global Biolab program. Press release. This came out on the 12th, a couple days ago. DNI Gabbard releases evidence of U.S. taxpayer-funded global biolab program. After months of searching through intelligence community holdings and files, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard is revealing new evidence of long-standing United States government funding of more than 120 biolabs in over 30 countries. These biolabs include labs in Ukraine, which may be at risk of compromise due to the ongoing Russia and Ukraine war. For example, the intelligence community previously warned that a U.S.-funded biolab in Ukraine likely housed dangerous pathogens and remained vulnerable to long-standing threats of Russian attack, seizures, or damage. The newly declassified evidence can be found here, which is linked to a Biolab Slides PDF on dni.gov. Until now, evidence regarding the full existence and funding of these labs had been knowingly withheld from the American people. The information surrounding the existence, history, locations, and funding of these U.S.-funded biolabs has been intentionally covered up by powerful people falsely claiming that they do not exist and accusing anyone who says otherwise to be foreign assets and traitors to America. Yeah, if you know the truth, you're a traitor. Many of these U.S. government-funded biolabs are currently or have previously engaged in research using hazardous and highly contagious pathogens, in some cases to include dangerous gain-of-function research with very little visibility or oversight. Trump understands the serious threat dangerous gain-of-function research poses to the American people, which is why he took decisive action on May 25th, 2025, signing Executive Order 14292 to end federal funding of gain-of-function research around the world. Yeah, now ask us if that's actually happened. I don't think so. Despite the obvious potential for catastrophic global impact research on dangerous pathogens in biolabs that they can have, politicians, so-called health professionals like Dr. Fauci and entities within the Biden administration's national security team lied to the American people about the existence of U.S.-funded and supported biolabs and threatened those who attempted to expose the truth. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence will continue to work closely with partners across the government to identify where these labs are, what pathogens they contain, to end dangerous gain-of-function research that threatens the health and well-being of the American people and people around the world, said Director Tulsi here. She also stated she issued new guidance to the intelligence community directing increased collection on these laboratories and facilities overseas. This directive is already providing new details on clinical trials that are underway at these facilities, raising significant ethical, financial, and security concerns. Yeah, you don't say. Anyway, she's trying to do something here before she leaves. I'm not sure when her last day is, but it's got to be coming up soon. And maybe at the end of this month. I'm not sure. Anyways, Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. So taxpayer-funded global biolab program. Not a surprise, is it? We kind of knew that was already happening, but to have it on an official government website is perhaps significant. We shall see. I don't think it'll matter. I don't think it's going to get stopped. If anything, the person after her will double down and make sure it all continues. That will be their job. All right, and then speaking of biolabs and hazards, doctors inject human subjects with first vaccine designed by AI. This is a fundamental shift in how we prepare for pandemics. Behold an actually useful application of AI. Again, this is on a website called Futurism, and that's mainstream media, and they think that vaccines are all great and wonderful and safe and effective. So keep that in mind. Researchers at the University of Cambridge have used a machine learning model to invent a new and wholly novel form of vaccine that could protect against an entire family of human coronaviruses and even animal variants that are yet to jump over, meaning jump over to humans, I guess. An initial human trial has already been completed, the results of which were published in the Journal of Infection, making it the first AI-designed vaccine to be tested in humans. The potential is dazzling. Dazzling. Look at that. It could future-proof us against deadly virus mutations before they even occur. that is, of course, if you believe that they do as advertised. But they clearly don't. This is about making vaccines that protect us, not just from today's viruses, but protect us from what can cause the next outbreak or disease. That's the official quote here. So anyway, yeah, don't you want to get injected with the next and latest AI vaccine? Isn't that lovely? Yeah. I thought you would like to hear about that. That's on futurism.com. Anyway, we'll leave out a few of the details, but that was pretty much it. Can certainly look that one up on your own if you want, or be on the Substack list. And then, speaking of which, as far as vaccines go, CDC awards Pfizer $1.24 billion for the COVID vaccines for kids and adults. So if you thought that they were putting the COVID VAXX to rest and that people weren't going to be taking it, why would the CDC buy another $1.24 billion worth of CV19 VAXXs for kids and adults? The roughly $735 million pediatric and $505 million adult COVID-19 vaccine grants cover 26 and 27. So it's both for this year and next year, according to federal records. The monetary infusion has revived debate among critics and public health experts around the safety and efficacy of the vaccines and the reliance on mRNA technology. I think it sounds like to me it's the literal stamp of approval. They're buying more. This is on children'shealthdefense.org. Center for Disease Control, as I say, the Center for Disease Creation, CDC, recent decision to award Pfizer $1.24 billion for COVID-19 vaccines has renewed debate over the government's continued investment in mRNA technology. The contracts awarded on June 1st included about $735.7 million for pediatric COVID-19 vaccines and nearly $505 million for adult doses. So I'd always heard that they were the same size. I don't know if one's actually smaller than the other or not. Interesting that there's $30 million more providing for vaccines for kids. So what does that tell you? It tells me get rid of them while they're young. That's what that tells me. Critics say the funding reflects a continued commitment to vaccines associated with high rates of serious injuries and deaths and lack of adequate safety testing and monitoring, which there's been some pretty trustworthy sources stating that RFK Jr. will be on his way out very soon, perhaps right after the 4th of July. So less than a month. We shall see. That's probably true. He's apparently not able to do some of the things he's wanting to do. His hands are being tied by Trump and company, and I think he's getting out. So this kind of stuff, though, would certainly go against anything he's ever talked about, really, for the most part. So it goes in a little bit deeper here on these VAXXs and what all's involved. So feel free to look at that one. And here's another one, same website. Wanted to mention this. It's because it's an interesting comparison between the two. It says toxic exposures is the overall category here. Again, children'shealthdefense.org is where this is. Philip Morris used the tobacco playbook to hook kids on ultra-processed Lunchables. You guys have probably seen these Lunchables. A new study in the American Journal of Public Health traces how one of America's most recognizable children's meals, these right here, was shaped by the same corporate strategies that helped sell cigarettes. Drawing on previously undisclosed internal documents, Laura Schmidt, PhD, found that Philip Morris applied its tobacco industry playbook to develop, market, and reformulate Lunchables. Weird, huh? Says tobacco giant Philip Morris used its cigarette industry playbook to develop and market hyper-palatable foods, including Lunchables and other highly recognized ultra-processed foods to children, according to internal documents cited in a study published this month in the American Journal of Public Health. Lunchables became one of the clearest examples of that strategy. The prepackaged meals debuted shortly after Philip Morris acquired General Foods in 1985 and later merged it with Kraft. Wow. Yum, yum. Philip Morris acquired major food companies in part to boost revenue by applying the research and product development and marketing strategies that it had honed in the tobacco industry to its food brands. Makes sense? Thought this line was pretty curious right here. Lunchables blurs the boundary between food and toy. I don't know. There's no toys in these, so I'm not really sure what they mean. I guess they just mean the packaging. Lunchables was developed using Philip Morris's consumer-driven product development strategy for cigarettes. A 1990 company symposium described the company's approach as uncovering consumers' deepest needs and preferences and designing products to meet them. Cigarettes may not have much to do with cheese or beer or mayonnaise, but test methodologies excavating one hierarchy of needs might well apply to the other. We don't create demand, we excavate it. We prospect for it, we dig until we find it. So there you go. Ultra-processed Lunchables. Marketing has mirrored on purpose the same marketing that they use for cigarettes. Pretty interesting, huh? Not too surprising, though, that's for sure. Undoubtedly, you have heard this already. Elon Musk becomes the world's first trillionaire. Is that such a bad thing? Growing economies benefit all people, not just the uber wealthy. I don't think he really is the world's first billionaire. He's the world's first trillionaire. In fact, there was a pretty famous family called the Rothschilds who supposedly have been trillionaires for quite some time, although they don't want you talking about that. So you do have the Rothschilds. There may be some others, well-known families that don't like their names in the headlines. And then I've also heard over the years that there are multiple trillionaires already and have been for some time in China. People at the top in China. Often they are associated directly with the Chinese Communist Party, of course, but the military. So I don't think Musk is actually the world's first trillionaire, is what I'm saying. I think you have some families that already are, and I think you have some members of the Chinese Communist Party who already were as well. Anyway, but Musk has officially become a trillionaire on paper. Musk, the world's richest man, has extended his lead by becoming the world's first trillionaire in history. Many progressives have bemoaned this result for years, but is there anything to fear? SpaceX company went public this week, announcing on Thursday the initial price of $135 per share. Musk, the founder, CEO, chief technology officer, and chairman of the board, all those things, holds roughly half of the company's stock. Yeah, so it just went public this last week. The company's stock opened at $150 and hit $170 after trading began, putting Musk comfortably above the $1 trillion mark, even without the bonus shares tied to space colonization. The news was hardly a surprise. Musk even referred to himself as a trillionaire back in March on an X post. Of course, Musk does not actually have $1 trillion in checking in savings. He is a trillionaire on paper and will only remain one as long as both SpaceX and Tesla maintain healthy stock prices. Still, it represents a significant milestone in the history of human achievement. Yeah, like man landing on the moon for the first time in 1969. It has about that much effect, if you ask me. Of course, I guess he likes it. I guess old Elon likes it. All right, and then here's another article from Reason.com. Oh, yes. We have to talk about the UFC White House debacle. The White House UFC fight is the perfect event for the present, not the past. A cage fight on the South Lawn may be an unusual choice to celebrate the founding, but it is a mirror of our political moment. It is, isn't it? It is a mirror, which is why we all are saying, many of us are saying that indeed we do live in idiocracy. And that's getting easier and easier to prove that we live in idiocracy. Walking around the White House South Lawn these days, you'll notice a few things. There's a tiered platform with mics and music stands. There are many folding seats situated in a theater in the round, each stamped with warning, please do not stand on chair. There are the chairs branded with crypto.com, and then above it all, there is the Claw, a hulking, four-legged makeshift canopy hovering 92 feet aloft, finished in red, white, and blue. Yeah, well, they might as well do away with the red and just have the white and the blue, because that's, if you know what I mean, that's the only two colors that actually matter when you're making Israel great again, is just the white and the blue. You can forget the red. Anyway, talks about the selfies and the Ultimate Fighting Championship Freedom 250 event that will take place on Sunday night. Oh, was that tonight? I didn't know that. With an international cast, will duke it out for various titles. Not that it matters. Anyway, UFC Freedom 250 is, depending on whom you ask, become the crown jewel of America's semi-quincentennial. Yeah, you might say that. Certainly is a highlight for Trump, for sure. Maybe he just wanted to get this whole deal with Iran put on the back burner so he can enjoy his birthday weekend. And isn't it his birthday? I think his birthday is this weekend, isn't it? Where he turns 80. Let me look. I think that's right. I want to say he was born. Yeah, Trump's birthday was June 14th. Yep. So today. So today was the UFC Freedom Fest thing, and then the birthday was today too. So that makes sense. He probably just wanted to enjoy his birthday in peace and quiet. Not really. And then be able to celebrate with all of the other billionaires rubbing shoulders with him there. Anyway, that's as crazy as it gets if you ask me. Or maybe not, because we do have this. This was a video that was posted, well, it was RT originally, but Joe Salente posted it and says it's a clown show. So here we go. Literal motorcycles doing backflips. Let me expand the video here so you can see it better. Well, you get the idea. Isn't that lovely? So, people doing backflips at the White House. That is something Trump has been doing for quite some time, just not on a motorcycle. Yeah, it is a clown show, though, for sure. So that's where we are. And then, let's see here. Here's another article. Make Rome fall again. Trump's UFC spectacle turns America's birthday into a blood sport metaphor for imperial decline. He's not wrong. Anyway, there's probably a little bit better look here of the top, the canopy thing, and all these seats for all the billionaires and multimillionaires who will get to go watch the prize fighting. But it's only the fighters can only be pro-Israel, though. That's one thing that we found out in the last week or so. You can't have any anti-Israel stance on anything, or you're not even allowed in this whole area. And the reason I know that is because looking over here, we mentioned last week Sean Strickland, who was the number one fighter, I think. He was escorted out by security after sneaking into the UFC Fan Fest. Faces possible disorderly conduct charge. Again, he's got the wrong view on Israel, so he wasn't allowed in. UFC champion says, I don't think genociding Palestine is optimal, and gets banned from UFC event, shows up anyway. The crowd goes wild, but 95 cops hauled him out. So isn't that lovely? Here's the article. So let me go to that. This is on a website called MMAfighting.com. Sean Strickland escorted out by security after sneaking into UFC Fan Fest. Faces possible disorderly conduct charge. Yeah, you can't do that if you are not 100% pro-Israel. Isn't that crazy? It is to me. Anyway, yeah, so there's all that. And then, which reminds me of, and I mentioned it already, it reminds me of this whole deal with the UFC is simply, if you ask me, it's Idiocracy for sure. You guys remember that movie? Did you ever see it? I saw it one time, and I think we're living Idiocracy. Don't you guys? These are the two buildings practically falling over, but have ropes tied between them to hold each building up. Kind of sums things up. But yeah, Idiocracy. We are there. And to further prove we are living in Idiocracy, I've got a couple more articles. This first one is highly disturbing, but indeed, it is further proof that we are living in Idiocracy. Look at this one. Shock video. Woman, 21, dies after rope jumping workers forget to attach the rope before throwing her off of a bridge. I kid you not. Could you imagine? Devastating footage out of Brazil shows moment woman plunged to death from bridge during rope jump after workers failed to attach the rope. They were so excited to get her up there and throw her off, they forgot to tie the rope to her. Disturbing footage out of Brazil showed in a moment a young girl plunged to her death from a bridge while rope jumping after workers failed to secure her safety harness. The incident happened Saturday at the Skeleton Bridge, interesting, in Limeira, I guess, with video showing workers lifting 21-year-old Maria Eduarda Rodriguez de Freitas, her, over their heads and tossing her from the 130-foot high bridge as onlookers screamed, "Guys, the rope." Here's the rope right here. It was right there. And they pick her up and throw her off the bridge. First responders confirmed the woman's death when they arrived, with her fiancé also needing to be hospitalized after becoming ill in the aftermath of the accident. No kidding. Two men later fled into the woods and were located via a police helicopter as 6 people were arrested and taken into custody. 3 workers seen in the video reportedly face homicide with implied malice charges. How about that? Police detective told local media the men organized the event despite not being authorized to be on the bridge and did not follow basic safety protocols, making them liable for their activities in the woman's death. They forgot to tie the rope. Idiocracy. And then here's even more Idiocracy type stuff. Look at this one. Best and brightest. An Indian doctor in Oregon implanted a child's heart upside down. Did he just forget to read the manual or something? Americans have been assured that we are supporting the best and brightest foreigners the world has to offer. Yeah. So when a story like this hits the internet, people are going to wonder what the H is going on, because the public has been sold a very specific story about these amazing standards, credentials, and competence from immigrants who come here to work and are placed in positions of tremendous trust. Apparently, that's not entirely true. The case we're about to share with you is a complete and total nightmare. According to a lawsuit filed in Oregon by the parents of a 13-year-old girl, an Indian doctor at Oregon Health and Science University allegedly implanted her heart valve upside down. Of course, her heart wouldn't work. This poor child spent 18 days hooked up to machines while doctors discussed end-of-life care and even organ donation. So he puts it in upside down, and then they're wondering why she has to be on the machine for 18 days and decide, okay, well, let's just go ahead and end her life. By the way, do you want to donate her organs? Idiocracy. The Indian surgeon's name is Dr. Ashok Muralidharan. And the fact that he's an Indian is a major reason why this story has gone viral. Right here. How on earth could something this catastrophic happen inside a major American children's hospital by a supposedly qualified surgeon? He installed a child's heart the wrong way. This is a horror show. Horrifying medical malpractice by Indian doctor named Ashok Muralidharan at OHSU. A 13-year-old Oregon girl's heart valve was implanted upside down during surgery by Dr. Ashok. Her heart wouldn't restart. For 18 days, she was on life support while doctors told her devastated parents she was dying, discussed end-of-life care, and even organ donation. Seattle Children's fixed the catastrophic error in the procedure. Her heart started working immediately. She's now making a, quote, miraculous recovery. This level of negligence is unforgivable. Praying for full healing for this brave girl. At least she didn't have to die. Again, we are living in not only the end times, but unfortunately the end times has become idiocracy. Man, what if that was your kid? I found this one and thought, okay, well, it's probably not really that rare. Crowds flock to see a rare apple. A rare apple in New Zealand grocery store, and I can see why. This is what the apple actually looks like. A 1 in a million apple that's half red, half yellow has become a local celebrity at the Sunshine Corner Market in Christchurch, New Zealand, after it came in a random delivery last month. The store's owner told the New Zealand Herald, "We've been in this game a long time and never seen one like it. Here's the apple." And no, that's not AI. That's actually a perfectly halved red and yellow apple known as a chimera apple. Don't you think they have chimera animals around too? Chimera apples are caused by a rare gene mutation that causes one apple to form from two different genetic backgrounds, resulting in a really cool half and half variety. Really cool. Is that right? It's also not genetically engineered, but a naturally occurring mutation, even though it does look pretty unnatural. You suppose it really is? I would have thought that it would have been some sort of GMO gone wrong, personally. The store owner said that the apple has created quite a stir in their community, with people stopping by just to catch a glimpse of the rare fruit. Some people have even asked to rub the apple for luck. Can't hurt, Steve Martin says. People have gone home, told their other half, and they haven't believed them, so they've come back with them. Lots of people are really excited and have taken photos of it. It's just captured people's imagination. The apple is approaching the end of its shelf life, and the store hasn't decided if they want to preserve the fruit, to keep it on display and cut it open to look inside. I vote to cut it up and sell it by the slice. That's what they say on this article. Anyway, there's your apple story for today. Anyway, yeah, I thought it would be a GMO situation where something just went wrong, but maybe not. Maybe not. It is pretty wild how the line is pretty much perfectly down the middle. Yeah, okay. And then this one, Jerry Seinfeld gave the best answer when a Knicks fan asked him to say, "Free Palestine." So I'll just play it for you. I can't play the whole video, though, because this guy here goes into an F-word bomb-dropping tirade as soon as Jerry's done. But it is an interesting thing that Jerry says. But they were going to read a little bit more about that. So here's what this says.
Oh, Jerry Seinfeld.
What up, Seinfeld? What up? Can we get a free Palestine? Can we get a free Palestine? Come on, give us one free Palestine.
It doesn't exist.
Now watch his face.
You got all that? You got all that?
Yeah. So, unfortunately, a lot of people in the comments don't know their history, it says. So, Jerry said it doesn't exist when he was told to say Free Palestine. He said it doesn't exist. It says, unfortunately, a lot of people in the comments don't know their history. Here's one of the comments. Palestine has been around since the times of the Egyptian Empire. Jerry is a retarded woke Zionist. Wrong, this says. So here's where I wanted to read this and just see. I haven't pre-read this, although I did know that there was more to this story, so I wanted to mention this. We use the name Palestine because the Brits used it after they took control of the region following the collapse of the Ottoman Empire post-World War I. The Ottomans ruled that area for over 700 years, and they had split the area of Palestine, quote-unquote, into different jurisdictions known as Muta-Serafate of Jerusalem and Vilayet of Beirut and Ayalet of Damascus. Before the Ottomans, other Arab dynasties and the Christians who lived there before the Islamic invasions never called it Palestine. How about that? The reason the British named it Palestine is because the Brits were obsessed with Greco-Roman history. They defaulted to the Roman name for the province long before Islam was a thing, or Arabs were the majority in the Middle East. The Romans called the land Palestinia based off of the Hebrew word Pelesheth and the Egyptian word Peleset, which referred to the seafaring Philistines. Yes, the David and Goliath Philistines. This people group sailed from Greece and Turkey during the droughts and famines of the late Bronze Age collapse, recorded during Joseph's time in Egypt, and captured the lowland coastal area between Egypt and Israel. The Philistines aren't related to the current Arab inhabitants at all. No, I think, weren't the Philistines giants? Modern-day Palestinians are just Levant Arabs who were cut off from their relatives in Jordan, also named by the British, thanks to the maps being redrawn by Europeans. The reason they haven't been allowed to reunify is because, one, the king of Jordan is a minority, and he doesn't want more Arabs, and two, the Palestinians, quote-unquote, are a useful tool to try to destroy Israel. That's what this says. But Fitness Fave, the fastest growing streamer of 2026, left this as the caption for his video on TikTok. He said, "Clown hasn't been relevant in decades anyway," meaning Jerry Seinfeld. Fitness Fave encountered a bunch of celebs after the game, but he cusses through every interview, so I'll leave it here. You're welcome. Anyway, I don't know. I'm not sure. But anyway, that was what this article stated. This apparently is Fitness Fave. So, pretty funny and pretty quick-witted response, though. It doesn't exist, he says. So he's not wrong. It doesn't exist, technically. But, pretty wild. All right, vaccine impact. An article from there. The adulterous American Christians crave friendship with the world, making them enemies of God. Are not the rich the ones who oppress you and the ones who drag you into court? That's from James 2:6. I'll just read a little bit of this. The letter from James recorded in the New Testament portion of the Bible has been controversial since the Reformation period. In Europe, when the German priest and theologian Martin Luther expressed his opinions about whether or not James's letter should have been included in the New Testament writings. Luther's main protest against the Roman Catholic Church was that the gospel did not require a person to be religious and with righteous deeds to know God, and that the Catholic doctrine of papal authority was not biblical. He claimed that God spoke to him through Romans 1:17. For in the gospel of righteousness from God is revealed, a righteousness that is by faith from first to last, just as it is written, the righteous will live by faith, Romans 1:17. The emphasis of much of the Reformation movement in Europe was based on this truth that the righteous will live by faith and faith alone. Religious works and adherence to the Pope as an authority figure were not required. So in the mind of Luther, when he came to the letter of James in the New Testament, he took issue with much of what James wrote, such as this. What good is it, my brothers, if a man claims to have faith but has no deeds? Can such faith save him? Suppose a brother or sister is without clothes and daily food. If one of you say to him, go, I wish you well, keep warm and well fed, but does nothing about his physical needs, what good is it? In the same way, by faith itself, if it's not accompanied by action, is dead. James 2:14-17. He seems to think that this contradicted the writings of Paul, such as Paul's letter to the Romans, and Romans 1:17, which states the righteous will live by faith. There is, of course, no contradiction at all. The confusion lies in the place works or righteous deeds have in the life of a believer in Jesus Christ. If a person believes that they have become righteous first, as a requirement to earn God's favor before they can enter the kingdom of God through spiritual rebirth, then that belief is not the gospel. Luther and most of the other reformers were correct about this and accurately pointed out the false doctrines of the Catholic Church during that time period. However, if one understands the works or righteous deeds are the result of faith, not the requirements of faith, then there is no contradiction at all. All right, and then it goes on. There's more here. Talking about James, the evidence of true believers, and goes a little bit deeper into all of this. It says, we are actually seeing the same thing happen today in modern American culture that James observed during this day, where so-called believers are giving preference to the rich and powerful, the very people who are exploiting the poor and weaponizing the legal system to attack them. Donald Trump is the perfect example of this. Conservative Christians could care less that his name appears more often in the Epstein files than almost any other name, and they support his actions against the poor immigrants and refugees who come into this country. He's the perfect example of the one who receives special attention because of his wealth and political status that James wrote about. So yeah, anyway, it goes into this a little further. Those believers who worship and adore Trump as their leader, according to the writings of James, are enemies of God. You adulterous people, don't you know that friendship with the world is hatred toward God? Anyone who chooses to be a friend of the world becomes an enemy of God, James 4:4. Many, but not all, Christian conservatives, American conservative Christians, believe that they can have fame and success in the world and also be part of the kingdom of God, but it is a lie. Anyway, a bit more here on this one. Quite a bit. That's on vaccineimpact.com. That's where that one is. Just a few more articles and we can wrap it up tonight. Here's a Reason article, reason.com. Oh yeah, we've got several things I wanted to just briefly mention here on Spielberg's new movie, Disclosure Day. Has some strange assumptions about the media. The best way to release secret footage of alien life is local TV news, which I think is kind of how the movie starts. Given the recent success of Backrooms, a movie based on a YouTube series that was itself based on a meme, it's tempting to view Spielberg's often crackling but frequently frustrating Disclosure Day in the same light. This is the Beard's rip on the old Ancient Aliens meme, the popular on the internet History Channel freeze frame featuring a zap-haired expert, this guy that we're seeing, who somehow always seemed to be conveying the same amusingly crazy idea. I'm not saying it was Ancient Aliens, but it was Ancient Aliens. Yeah, I forget that guy's name. Spoiler alert, in Spielberg's movie, the aliens aren't quite ancient. They've only been around since the 40s, at least as far as the U.S. government and its sinister corporate tentacles know. But this isn't much of a spoiler given the trailers and the fact that the basics of alien existence are revealed to the viewer by the end of the first act. Indeed, that's the setup rather than the resolution. Aliens exist, and there is copious archival footage to prove it. And shadowy forces have been engaged in a massive cover-up in order to gain power over alien technology and cow the public. The movie, then, is about the quest to release the evidence to the world. The quest starts with the hacker Daniel Kellner, played with the quiet intensity of increasingly excellent Josh O'Connor, who makes off with a cache of drives containing classified footage depicting alien contact and technology as the movie opens. Anyway, it goes into, I guess, synopsis of what happens in the movie, which I have not seen the movie. I don't even know if it's out yet, actually. It says, indeed, this part is what makes the movie so odd. It is set in a contemporary United States in which it's assumed that essentially everyone does trust the media. There are iPhones and internet connections, but we see no podcasters, no YouTubers, not even any skeptical mainstream media pundits, let alone the sort of sketchy attention-seeking politicians who would want to turn the headline news event into fodder for self-aggrandizement. Aliens are real, and that's why we must tax billionaires and oligarchs. Now, please donate to my campaign. Said no one in this movie. Yeah. Anyway, I can't imagine that this movie is going to change people's opinions on the whole alien question. However, that's not what Spielberg's out there saying. Spielberg's new film asks if aliens would shatter faith. The Bible already answered that question. So this is actually a story on Israel365news.com. So they're showing a giant, I guess, get out of a spaceship. So I won't spend a lot of time on this, but further information here on this article. I didn't realize he's 79, so he's Trump's age. Wow. Disclosure Day opening June 12th. So it is out. Maybe the most theologically charged of all of Spielberg's films. The film starring Josh O'Connor, Emily Blunt, follows a Kansas City weather personality who suddenly speaks foreign languages she's never learned, and a rogue cybersecurity expert racing to release a massive trove of classified government UFO files. They did release the third tranche of UFO files, by the way. I haven't looked it up yet, but it is apparently out there on the old, what was it? The government website, was it war.gov? I think it was war.gov/UFO. I think that's where it was. And then this article, too, watch, Spielberg says Disclosure Day will leave Christians questioning their faith in God. Will it really? I don't think it will. At least not people who are actual believers, in my opinion. I mean, if you only just barely call yourself a Christian, then perhaps, but I just can't imagine that it would make that much difference. Looking to see why he says that. You know, most people that I know think of the whole space alien thing as perhaps interdimensionals, that those creatures may or may not be actual beings. They might be technology. They may be, you could call them what? Not really robots, but they could be autonomous beings who are being run by fallen angels, fallen angel technology, essentially. That's what I tend to think that they probably would be versus, you know, space travelers, people from other planets, which is where most people go who don't have any sort of biblical basis for understanding this stuff. The movie takes a position of the believers, the curious, the ones that have been deeply affected by this. The Emily Blunt character, as you know, something has happened to her. She has no idea what it is. She has to try to understand why it has upended her life. The movie also takes the position of the church. What does this do to the fundamental beliefs that many of us have? Is God our God only on this planet, or is God a God for every system where there's civilization and intelligent life and even developing life? Yeah, if that even exists. Who knows if it does? That's a huge assumption. Spielberg, who directed and produced the movie, feels Christians will find themselves asking of their faith and their beliefs as the movie takes the absolute position of the church. I don't know if I buy that one. He says the questions need answers, or will Christians simply see the work as a piece of entertainment predicated on Hollywood's self-serving need to make money while touching on personal fears? Yeah, the one thing that I feel like he might have correct in all of this is that he does tend to portray the aliens as not necessarily friendly and of God. He does portray them as dark and scary and everything you would, I think, attribute them to from the demonic side. And that, to me, is probably accurate. But beyond that, I don't know. I mean, he's obviously a person of Jewish descent and probably has his own motives as well. And I don't know if I'll even bother seeing the movie. However, apparently it is out now. So anyway, Disclosure Day is what we're talking about here. That's an article on Breitbart. Disclosure Day will leave Christians questioning their faith in God. I don't know. I'm not so sure that it will. Okay, and then this one was curious to me, partly because of the headline. Rare leviathans spotted off Israeli coast just in time for post-Messiah. And then it says BBQ. I'm like, okay, well, I'm an American. So does that mean barbecue, or does that mean something else? Rare leviathans spotted off Israeli coast just in time for post-Messiah. I think what they're talking about is banquet, not barbecue. So here's what this says. They're not barbecuing any whales. An Iranian missile alert forced a team of Israeli marine researchers to abandon their survey of the Mediterranean last Monday, just as they made one of the rarest sightings in a decade of deep-sea research, 2 sperm whales off the southern coast of Israel. So I think that's fairly unusual. Here's the video. The Ashdod coast, June 8th. Rare sperm whales are spotted by a Haifa University marine monitoring team off the coast of southern Israel. So they're clearly very excited about this. So, but the headline's calling them leviathans in quotes, which, yeah, they're 2 whales. I only saw one in the picture there. But there's a little bit more on what the researching team were doing and all this stuff. But I thought the prophetic part of this was what was interesting to me. Not so much that there were whales in the Mediterranean, which, you know, you could attribute some of that to what we hear, you know, biblical end times stuff about the third of the sea life dying and so forth. And perhaps they're just hungry and looking for food. I mean, I don't know why they're there. But it does mention in this article, it says for those, so we talk about the International Oceans Day and the whole research aspect of what they're doing with these whales. But it says, for those immersed in prophetic tradition, the appearance of these great creatures in Israeli waters is not simply a marine biology story. The prophet Ezekiel envisioned a transformed land of Israel teeming with an extraordinary abundance of sea life. So from Ezekiel 47, verse 10, and it shall come to pass that fishers shall stand by it from En-gedi even unto End-Eglaim. There shall be a place for the spreading of nets. Their fish shall be after their kinds, as the fish of the great sea, exceeding many. Okay, and it says that this, so that was Ezekiel 47:10, which, that's good. But then it goes on to quote something from the Zohar. The Tikkuni Zohar, the esoteric work attributed to Rabbi Shimon Yochai in the 1st century CE, meaning 1st century AD, teaches that an increase of fish in these waters signals a specific stage of the Geula, a redemptive process in which the Mashiach ben Yosef, the practical builder of the land, and the Mashiach ben David, who ushers in the miraculous era, including the building of the temple, merge into a single unified unfolding. The period marked by the fish is described as one of Hamtakat Hadanim, a sweetening of divine judgments symbolized by the fish's mystical capacity to make seawater potable. The Leviathan, referenced in Job 3:8, Psalm 74:13, and Psalm 104:26, and Isaiah 27:1, occupies a central place in this prophetic framework. While the modern Hebrew word Leviathan simply means whale, the origin of Leviathan of Jewish tradition was a creature of fearsome mythological power. The Talmud records that God originally created both a male and a female Leviathan, but fearing the destruction the species would bring if it multiplied, he slew the female and preserved her flesh for the banquet that will be given to the righteous at the arrival of the Mashiach. The feast is to be held inside a great tent fashioned from the Leviathan's skin. How about that? Isn't that crazy? It says 2 enormous animals surfacing off Ashdod in the middle of an Iranian missile alert on International Oceans Day during a period of escalating conflict and apocalyptic tension may be exactly the sign the Tikkuni Zohar described. Again, talking about the Zohar, not the Bible. The deep waters of Israel are coming alive, and the great banquet may be closer than anyone imagined. So how about that? Isn't that weird? About the whales in the Mediterranean off the Ashdod coast. Crazy. That's on Israel 365. That's where that one is. Israel 365 News. All right, got our GeoWatch update here. Let's do that. Can call it a night after this. Geoengineering Watch Global Alert News, June 13th. Engineered heat dome. Millions told to stay inside over extreme heat on Trump's birthday weekend. That would be this weekend. Climate engineering operations, which include ionosphere heater frequency transmission-induced high-pressure heat domes, are wreaking havoc. If the weather warfare is allowed to continue, it will soon be game over. What happens when the world's bread baskets start failing simultaneously? Wild temperature swings are becoming the new normal. That's a headline from Financial Times. Colorado River reservoirs near collapse. Scientists warn of system crash. Almost none yet grasp the gravity and immediacy of what is unfolding by the day. Buckle up. We are in for a ride. Latest installment of Global Alert News is below. So anyway, that is Mr. Dane's video for the week. Global Alert News for June 13th. And what else here? Make sure you're on the email sign-up list here. You can click this little icon here. It'll take you right to the page to do that. Would love to have you on the email list for geoengineeringwatch.org. And I think we're going to do another posting in the next day or so as well. So be on the lookout for that. You'll get that in your inbox if you're on that list. So let's take a look at the scheduled weather. I think it'll seem pretty interesting to you guys. We have the old split yet again, the different kind of split. We have cool throughout the Northeast and upper Midwest areas, and then hot again in the West. And then also, I guess, a stripe along the extreme southern areas of the states, Florida in particular. So the 6 to 10 day outlook, scheduled weather, June 20th through 24th. So cooler up here. And then let's look at this climate reanalyzer for those same dates. So again, June 20th through 24th. That is going to look like this map on the right here, June 20th. So yeah, we have the heat in the west and in the southeast, cool everywhere else, right? Which is what we're seeing here. Starting June 20th, heat out west and down here a little bit in the southeast, and then cooler everywhere else. 9 degrees below normal in Indiana, 13 degrees below normal in North Dakota. So it's going to be quite a bit cooler. They're going to do a chemical cool down. So that's something to watch out for. Keep an eye on your skies. I bet you will see lots of trails coming up in the next few days. So watch out for that, because they have to spray. They have to spray the skies in order to do the chemical cool downs, which they will use moisture from the Pacific and route it around to get to the southern areas here in Canada and the northern areas of the U.S., and possibly even use some moisture from the Gulf and cool it all down. But they can't cool down the entire U.S. Note that the West will be left once again, to heat up. So 4 degrees to 8 degrees above normal out west. So again, this is starting June 20th. So if we move a little bit closer to today's date, June 17th, which is 2 days out from now, 2 to 3 days out from now, we still have pretty cool through most of the U.S. and pretty hot out west still. So kind of the same thing, I guess. And then for now, this is what we are experiencing roughly. June 14th, kind of more of the same. Cooler down the middle and even through the south. Hot out west. So we have the split. We always have the dreaded split, it seems like, lately. Split one way or the other, but typically it's the west they let heat up and dry out and catch on fire, and the east that they consistently seem to cool down, at least to some degree. So anyway, that is the various scheduled weather maps that we normally look at. And then I think that was the end of the articles. Let me see what else I was going to show you guys tonight. Oh yeah, this is the Buy Me a Coffee. If you guys want to support the show, this is probably the best, easiest way to do that. Let me refresh this page here. I try and update this video on this page, so if you missed the show and you happen to have this page bookmarked, you can actually watch the most recent show on this page. This was last week's show, Update from the Beach, when I was in the dark but outside, and you can hear the ocean waves crashing about 75 yards out from where I was sitting. So if you missed last week's show, it is there. It's embedded there. It's also on the YouTube channels and Rumble and everywhere else as well. And let's see here. Here's the Substack, diamonddisc.substack.com. So we'd love to have you on the list. Just type your email address in there, hit subscribe. You can also support the show that way if you'd rather do that versus buy me a coffee or any of that stuff. And again, no pressure, but it is there if you guys want to support what I'm doing. And here's Subscribe Star as well. So it's not all about the money, but it does help to pay the bills. And I do try and absorb as much of the cost as I possibly can from week to week on the show. But as you know, prices are going up on everything. So anyway, we'll do the best that we can, right? So anyway, I guess that's it for me tonight. We don't really have any other videos. I do have a few more that are queued up, but we're running long tonight anyway. So I guess we'll call it a night. The next broadcast will be a week from today, which would be the 21st. So June 21. So what is that the summer solstice? The summer equinox or solstice, whichever one it is. I forget. I'm not an astrology guy. But anyway, yeah, it's first day of summer, I think, coming up. So thank you guys for being here tonight. Let's look at the comments just real quick. See. Somebody did a buy me a coffee. So thank you. Appreciate that very much. And hopefully it did the little animation. I don't know if it did or not. It wasn't on the right page. So anyway, thank you guys for being here tonight. Certainly appreciate that. Love you guys and hope to see you guys again back here next week, and we will do it all again then. Otherwise, hope you guys have a blessed week this week coming up, and have a good start to your summer. We ended up having a good trip to, we were in the panhandle of Florida. Mentioned it last week. We were down in the Redneck Riviera, as I happen to call it. But yeah, it was pretty nice. It was hot, but it was good overall. And I personally managed to not get sunburned, which was good. And can't say that about all the members of my family. Some people did get a little bit of sunburn, but doesn't take much these days with the extra high UV. So anyway, I just try to stay as safe and be as careful about it as possible. I sort of had Mr. Dane breathing down my neck anyway, telling me to be very careful. So I was. Anyway, blessings to you guys, and hope to see you guys again back here next week, and we'll do it again then. Love you guys. Talk to you later.